boots. Yes, that is a very high number, and yes, I did the count myself this morning. Came in early and it took an excruciatingly long time, but that is the amount of football boots that I have in my personal collection. And today, we're gonna talk about them. Maybe not every single pair of every single colorway, but we're gonna go through all the shelves and we're gonna take a look at them. My favorites, some historical pairs, I have signed boots, one-offs, some really rare limited edition ones, and basically we're gonna reminisce a little bit about the past as well. I have pairs dating back to, I think, 1994, maybe even earlier, so there's a lot of stuff to look at. And when you think back to 2 years ago when we did a similar video, I had 1130 whatever something. And to think I've gotten more or less 600 pairs more in the last 2 years is crazy. So I'm running out of space soon, to be honest, so let's take a look at what's in here now before everything changes again. I'm really excited, the nerdiest thing we've done in a while, and yeah, let's get going. And we can start over here on this shelf, which is where I've actually started putting football boots. I don't have that many yet, but I basically had to move into this shelf because everything else is full. So currently I only have the new Preds right here, Pred 26s, which obviously only exist in this colorway. There's gonna be more soon. So I'm gonna need all the space I can get. And otherwise, I only have a little bit of like winter gear, gloves and all that stuff. And then a lot of boxes with secret boots in them that haven't come out yet. Obviously, I can't show you, but you will see them all in due time. I also have a few historical footballs and basically every Adidas World Cup football down here as well. Of course, there's a lot of stuff on the shelves behind me, but I'm gonna save that for later, where probably only the most dedicated viewers are gonna be left. So yeah, Preds on this shelf. Let's move on to the next. And then on the shelf next to it, we start from the bottom here, where I have a cheeky little space for the new Nike Tempo Ligeras and the Maestros, of course. Fantastic boots. I mean, it came out really late in 2025, but in my opinion, also one of the biggest surprises of 25. To me, this is the best new boot to come out in the year 2025, and the Ligera Pros are also very, very high up the list. For the money you pay, these are absolutely ridiculous. And no, they are not kangaroo leather, but they can probably convince people that they are. So that's really good. And they're sitting next to, just only because they're not that many yet. Again, I'll need more space for them soon, but it is what it is. That's a problem for like later in the year. But they're sitting next to basically all my Skechers SKX2s, of which I now also have quite a few, which is another boot that really, really did well in 2025. Huge improvement from the first SKX, and just such a lovely little football boot to put on. It's super soft, really easy to enjoy. Already a lot of colorways to come out. I do also, of course, have, as you can see, my familiarization pair here, all white out for basically the pros to test before the boots come out. I was lucky enough to also get a pair, so I was ready to make my review, and yeah. I wore them in the rain and mud, so it is what it is. They're never gonna be white again, but a lovely little pair, and again, a boot I'm happy to just get more and more pairs of. Then up top, we have a lot of New Balance boots. Again, lucky enough to get a pair of white-out familiarization pairs of the New Balance Tequila V5 Elite. So that was fun. I got it really early, so I have absolutely worn these not to death, thankfully, but I've worn them a lot. Matches, trainings, individual sessions, it's such a good little boot. And the Tequila V5s are just, the V4 was already a great boot, so what they've done here with the Dynamic Touch Tech upper here, which is a synthetic leather upper, is phenomenal. Lots of great colors to come out. This in particular, of course, is a highlight, the Unisport 30th anniversary, that are just, inspired by stars and, dreams and all that stuff. They look phenomenal. And next to those, I have the 442 V2s. So obviously we have the Elites, again, the Unisport colorway. Maybe not for everyone, but I like how it's just different, right? And this is a ridiculous boot that probably went a little bit under the radar in 2025, where it came out with this. It's an upper that's very similar to the Dynamic Touch Tech, but it is so buttery soft that it's crazy. And then we obviously also have the Elites that were, when they came out, they were natural leather. Now they are actually synthetic leather as well. But it's the same material, more or less used as on the Elites, and it is also very, very soft. So New Balance are really doing well when it comes to synthetic leather, and that also kind of trickles down to to the 442 V2 Pro and V2 Elite. So lots of those I have in more or less every colorway, and Tequila's, it's a nice little shelf here with some different stuff. Moving up, we have the evidence as to why I said I might not have many Preds right now, but it will come. Because I actually remember not having many of the GX2s, and then all of a sudden colorways came out and everything exploded, and now you can see they're literally like trying to burst out from the shelf. So GX2 followed in the wake of the very popular GX1, and I have about, I think, every colorway that came out, which is my favorite. I mean, these are phenomenal. With you know, obviously the Safari pattern on, really like these. And the GX2s were, I've actually enjoy wearing them quite a lot. They were different from the GX1s, but you know, I don't know how many times I've gone out, and as you can see, I've worn these quite a lot. The AG Pro version of the GX2, which is actually really nice, nicely balanced, and perhaps one of the most balanced AG Pro outsoles Nike have in terms of finding that FG AG appeal. So lovely and solid pairs of football boots, but have been improved by the Phantom 6s. We're gonna talk about those later. Up here, one of my favorite smaller brands, Sakito, which have just done wonders with their Scudettas. So as you can see, have a lot of Scudettas as well. And what they've done here is to basically go in and take inspiration from the 2014 F50 Adi Zero, develop their own bio-inspired or bio version of the Hypertouch. So basically it's called BioTouch this, which is really nice. It's a super soft synthetic leather. It fits really, really nice and snug, it has a very, you know, really lovely heel to it. The outsole is ridiculously snappy and is one of the most aggressive outsoles you can find out there. It's super light, and just once you break these in, they're very, very, very good. What's cool is also that Sakito have now made an AG version, which people had been screaming for ages, ever since the first colorway came out. And this is, to me, I think, if not the best, then one of the best AG outsoles out there. Just so many, you know, the stud length is perfect for both most 3G, but also especially 4G pitches out there. It has that balance between giving you the feeling of like an FG boot, because the studs have a good like circumference and length to them. Also still, they're short enough to not be too aggressive in the ground. There's many enough of them to like really give you that balance feeling, and it's a wonderful, wonderful AG plate. So really happy with those. And I mean, in whiteout, what can you even complain about that? If we move up a shelf, we have a couple of the more, should we say, at least this side, we have a couple of the more special Predator 24, so the Y3s, the David Beckham Hypertouch boots. So obviously leather Predator 24s are lovely. A little bit on the wider side, perhaps a bit too wide for my taste, but they are absolutely phenomenal boots to wear. I have the Roteros, of course, then of course my whiteout pair, which, ooh, so yeah, back in the day I got two to test. I do have one that I wore a lot. I've battered them quite a lot. They're really dirty, so they're there. But these are squeaky clean, and that's always just fun. Getting whiteout test pairs is always really fun. But then of course we also have what I think is one of Adidas's hidden gems, the Copa Icon 2. It's 180 euros, but value for money wise, you'd think it's a lot more expensive than that. It's not though. What you get is a super soft calf leather forefoot here, lovely fit, this slightly wavy lacing pattern here, which actually gives a little better the way it folds over as you bend your foot. It's just so smooth. Lovely little heel shape here. And yes, okay, it is on the Adidas AG plate, which, I mean, I play a lot on AG, so that's cool, but it could also be nice to have it on, let's say, an F50 plate. Would be lovely, but it is what it is. Such a versatile, super, super comfortable boot, really light. And for 180 euros, I mean, it's a smash hit. Sadly, we haven't gotten other colorways than the white, black, red and the black, white, golds, but, you know, people wearing these are probably also the ones looking for the basics, and that is what you're gonna get. Sick pairs of boots. Now what we have up here is also, I have a little box with just stuff that I really couldn't fit in anywhere else. I have a couple of Pred Power Swerves that I actually haven't ever worn yet. The rubber bands are losing their tension, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. Oh, such a beautiful colorway these. I have a couple of Nike Super Ligeras, which is also like just throwback. And it's kind of cool that Nike have brought back the Ligera name. And to be fair, they could have called the Ligeras the Super Ligeras because they are super light. What else is there down here? There is a pair, ooh, yeah. Brand new in, not box, but in bag. Hypervenom and Phantom 1, love this colorway. And just for a rainy day when my other OG pair breaks. Lots of stuff that should never see the light of day, so that's cool. I have quite a lot of stuff that is just like not released. What else do we have here? Is that that's a brand new pair of the F50 Plus Spider Unisport. And I have a lot of pairs. And just, you know, boots I haven't really worn or haven't put on the shelf yet. And then basically components of the F50 Plus Spider Unisport edition just lying around, because why actually not? So, just lots of gems sitting on these shelves, really. All right, new shelf. Down here I have basically all the Tiempo Legend 10s that I own, which you can see Nike have released a lot of these. Okay, they've been around for a while, but yeah, quite a lot of them, all the way from the launch colorway up until, I guess, the last colorway, which was the Nike United Pack 002. So lots of these, which is my favorite, you ask. I know you didn't ask, but I think that obviously the gold ones are special here. Very cool. But yeah, it's been a solid boot. I think my impression of them when they came out, it was better than it is now. Obviously that the Maestro has taken over. It maybe hasn't aged as well as I thought it would, but when it came out, I thought the Flytouch Plus was a really solid synthetic upper. But you can also tell that it has a couple of years, you know, of age on it. It is what it is. Probably this should not have happened when you look at what the Maestro is, and the Maestro, if they were insisting on sticking with the Legend name for going synthetic leather, perhaps this should have been something else, and the Maestro could have been the Legend 10. Or this would have been a good way to go into the Maestro name. Start this, take it in a new direction, and, you know, I talked about it that this felt more like a CTR than an actual Legend. So I also think it might have been a little bit more palpable for a lot of the OG Tiempo fans if this had in fact not been a Tiempo Legend. You could still call it that one. Tiempo Maestro. Start with this, and then the actual Maestro could have been the Maestro 2. But I mean, I'm just a boot guy, so what do I know, right? Up here we have a lot of my F50s, well, a fraction of them. There's also a lot right over there. If you want, we'll talk about those later. But up here I basically have all the F50 Messis that have come out from like the first generation down here to the second generation. Bad Bunny is of course a particular highlight because it's just such a wild colorway. To me, the first generation of the Messis are way better than the second. Somehow, this upper is softer, it's a little bit more pointy, and I just like that a little bit more, and these are, I've not really worn them that much to be fair, because I think they're special and I want to keep them in English. I want to keep them in really good condition. Lots of the Messis here, I of course also have the Salas that came out in December, which is a beautiful pair of football boots. And I know I'm not supposed to say that because I'm a Man United fan, but I've had shot with Mo Salah before. He's a nice guy. And I just gotta hold my hands up and say I think these are stunning, aren't they? Yeah. So off the pitch, I like Mo Salah a lot. When he's constantly scoring against United, I don't like him all that much. It is what it is. Obviously, we have the Yamals, we have the Suns in here, and basically all of the laceless F50s I keep in this shelf as well. Probably not the best laceless boot around, honestly, but it is what it is. Ooh, hello! Is that a whiteout pair? That is a whiteout pair. Okay, it's a test. I have a lot of those. Love my whiteout pairs, which I also have for the Copa Pure 3s, which is nice. Yeah, you're gonna see a lot of those in the collection. Copa Pure 3, very solid. Not really much to say about here. Favorite color of these has to be the throwback to the Toni Kroos colorway we can just call it Tony Cole's colorway. UCL colorway this was, but a lovely little football boot. Super, super soft. Fusion skin upper here, and just a lovely. This should go on every Adidas boot that doesn't currently have a stitcher turn heel. So throw this on the Predator, and it's just a huge improvement in my book, just like what they did on the Predator 26 Pro. This is phenomenal. Use it more, Adidas, please. So Copa Pure 3, solid boot if you're into that modern kind of like Mizuno. It's not a Mizuno Morelia Neo, but it's kind of got the middle ground between the old 11 Pros and then the Neos, I would say. So really, really solid. Up here, Future 7s. I don't have that many of the Future 7s, but I wasn't that big of a fan, but they were solid boots that I know a lot of people loved. And obviously we have a couple of really banging Unisport collaboration colorways here. My favorite being the Great Wave, which is such a cool design. It's a little bit of a shame for me. I never really truly took to it. For me, the heel is a little bit too shallow, but I know a lot of people refer to this as like the last proper Future. So they definitely did something right. And yeah, these are stunning. But as you can see, there's probably a reason I haven't personally collected all that many of them, because it wasn't a boot I would go out and play in right now. Then up here, on the contrary, we have a boot I have a lot of colorways of, to be fair. And probably also, again, I just remember when I had like this part of the shelf. That was like obviously the launch colorway right here. We have my wear test pair. But they've actually cleaned up well. So got these early to test them out as well, which is always, yeah, that's gonna be for later. But obviously lots of Pred 24s, which is kind of where Adidas took the Predator back to not what it should feel like, because that's been redefined a lot of times over the years. But to me, they just really took it back in a nice new direction. Hybrid Touch 2.0 upper, slightly padded, super, super soft with these big brush-like Predator fins here. Loved it. Strike skin worked, the tongue was back. And they just took so many retro vibes with the colorways, of course, inspired by the Japan Blue, many as these. Like just really, really well done by Adidas, and just still to this day a boot I would happily wear for this season. Well, what's that up there, you ask? Well, let's take a look, shall we? That's what we're here for. Here we have a pair of, the Mizuno Wave Cup SS's that I actually haven't worn yet. They're basically the same as the Wave Cup remakes they made many years ago now. And while they were never available in Europe, which was a shame, Mizuno, fix that in the future, I did get help from a friend to bring them home from Japan. So lovely pair that I will eventually wear one day. What else do we have right here? Yeah, the Mbappe and LeBron boots. Then there is, there it was. I've actually been looking for this, so let's ditch the box later, and they're gonna go on the Mercurial shelf. Cool, talk about them later. What else do we have? That was the teaser colorway of the Puma Ultra 5 Carbon, which was also just nice. Sadly not in my size, but it is what it is. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so the boots basically that we got to do in the factory in Hyogo that Mizuno built the boots at, customized for Unisport, which is really cool. And as you can see, the sole has put on in a questionable way, and that's because I did it. And this was probably the pair that I didn't really succeed that much with. The other one is actually better with a couple of flaws here and there. But that was really fun to actually get to experience how difficult it is. You know, you see them putting on a sole and be like, I can do that. You just gotta, you know, tongue in cheek and then just focus a little bit, but it is difficult because once you put it on, the glue starts to work and you can't move it. And it needs a lot of precision to actually go on properly. So there's a reason that the Japanese craftsmen and women are some of the best in the game. That was really fun. Not my size either, sadly, but probably also too special to play with. And would I play with a pair that had such a dodge? No. So that would have been my own fault. What do we have here? Oh, that is probably going to be yes, indeed, the F50 Argo, which celebrates their 25th anniversary. So obviously our friends from Argo brought back this, which is nice. What else? Ooh, yeah, that one is special to me. Basically, you can probably see who that is for. That is a match-worn pair, almost like match-battered pair by Christian Eriksen, who gave me his little signature and then actually wrote 2J. So it's not just a random, he signed those for me. Obviously, being a Dane and a huge Man United fan, getting this pair of matchwear boots from Christian, who I've shot with multiple times. I mean, go back to like 2011, which is when we shot the first video together. He had more hair, and I actually had hair back then, and also at one point a stupid mustache. Let's not talk about that. And I hope the editor, he's gonna put it in the footage, so it is what it is. But yeah, love that. Obviously, that holds a special place in my heart. We also had these, which you would think are an unofficial pair of boots because it's so... No, this was the pair of April Fool's boots we made this year, where we took the upper from the Alpha Fly running shoes, and then we slapped it on a Mercurial outsole. We got a cobbler to do it, and yeah, fun idea, but needs a little bit of work. I don't remember what okay, yo, so cool. Pair of Vapor 1 Regions, really cool work. If they'd fixed the heel and actually made it not super boat wide, then it would actually have been a really, really nice boot. Looking in here, I see, ooh, Predator Elite, Michaels and Jacob. That is something that has been made for yours truly, and that is, ooh, yeah. That is the pair of one of the boots that Adidas made for me in Scheinfeld at the Made to Measure factory, where they basically measured my foot in their headquarters in Herzogenaurach, and then they took all that data to the factory in Scheinfeld, to the production line where they built the boots for the pros, and they made one for me. This was a test pair where they gave me a little bit more room in the toe box than we all thought I needed, but just to give it a try, to get it perfect, made customization with my logo on. The initial for my kids and my wife, and the Unisport logo, of course. So to just get them in the box that all the pros get their boots in that is a big highlight of 2025 for me. It's been a dream for I don't know how long, and for them to make it happen, I mean, if you're watching this, I am eternally grateful for that. To think of how few people, wait. Anyways, it's empty. To think of how few people actually get this. I think I'm the only amateur player in the world, at least in the last 10 years, to get this treatment. So that's really something. Ooh, yeah, okay. Then we have a pair of boots signed by Heung-min Son. Basically, we went to shoot with him and had a great talk about football boots. And he enjoyed it so much that he actually sent over some, some signed boots and a signed shirt. So that's also, he's the nicest guy, Sonny. Like the nicest guy. We'll talk about him later, but we talked about obviously the memory lane F50s that he wore against Arsenal, scored that goal. And when we sat down, we started talking boots. I think we had 10 minutes with him to do that video. And we sit down. You never know how much the pro, they really care about boots. So I was a little bit, okay, maybe I have to drive this video. We sat down and I started spitting facts, and he was just like, yeah. And then he just rolled out his own facts, and he remembered all the colorways, had opinions about all the boots. He's a boot nerd, and I didn't know, and it was amazing. So we basically go over time because we talk so much, and I can see the Adidas people like, there, come on, wait, behind the camera, we need to move. I say that, and he's just like, they will have to wait. We have to talk about this. It's important. It's football boots. So amazing experience. Amazing experience. What do we have here? Ooh. There it was! Another thing I've been looking for ages. The other pair of the Ultra Barbershop, which is basically a design that I sat doing in Photoshop that we sent down to Puma. They refined and special. We'll talk about those later. So yeah, lots of good stuff up on these shelves. Let's get it back up. And then right up there is basically a shelf that I can't really reach it, so I don't pull them down much, but I have all the generations of the Furons, all the way back from like the first pair that, if we're being honest, it kind of sucked, up until some of the later generations, the V2s, V3s were okay, V4s, V5s were actually really solid. So they're up there. Then I have some of the Warrior boots, basically what came out before New Balance. And it was basically to test the waters. Could New Balance come into the market with their vision for football boots and disrupt stuff. So Warrior was basically what came before, which was maybe not the raging success they were looking for. Boots were actually okay, some of them were fine, but they also made some questionable decisions with, I bring this out all the time. They have the Gambler here, which had this hole in the heel that was called the Glory hole. And I know they wanted to be disruptive and a little bit cheeky, you know, but yeah, no, that was just stupid. Some of them were okay, some of them were actually quite good. The Warrior here in leather was a solid pair of football boots. Over here though, a shelf with boots that were way better, to me at least. With some futures, obviously we have the Future 17, what is it? Was it the 7? I always say that, 17 or 18.1. It's probably the 18.1, right? Has to be 18.1. There was never 17.1. But the first Future right here, which to me is also actually one of the best ones, because this is where it all started with the net fit system, and actually also they had this net incorporated into the upper, so it was really maybe a little bit stiff by today's standards, but when you broke it in, it became super soft. And it had that like Hypervenom 1 like feel to it. Great shape to the boot as well, which is something the newer Futures could learn from. Obviously, it had the net fit system, which means that you could customize the lacing. Not too many people did, but I loved that feature. And yeah, my favorite Future. To be fair, this was like the first teaser boot where they wanted to highlight the net fit system, and yeah, for us just to go out and test it. There was also the 2.1, which is here. Also fun, Puma customized it for me and wrote, not J Mike, but J Make. So that was phenomenal. We have the Future 5s that were solid, the Ballers also cool, and you know, maybe those like middle generations of the Futures weren't my favorites, to be honest. The 5s were comfortable, but maybe not the most beautiful boots in the world either, but they were solid, but maybe not for me what the first Future was, in that it had that really close feeling on the ball. The 5s were maybe a little bit too cozy, but definitely also, I can understand why they appealed to a lot of people. Then we will move down to stuff I can actually reach without going on my tippy toes. We have a lot of Nemesis boots here, also some Messis. Basically, I don't know if you remember, back in 2017, Adidas kind of took a new direction and thought, hey, we have this technology where we looked at boxers and martial artists that kind of like wrap their feet in tape to get this, get the stability and give them a little bit more, support for their legs. But it was also, they stayed agile. And that was what they were looking to do here. So they had their agility bandage, as you can see the technology was called, which is this like really stretchy tape-inspired material that was basically just wrapped into the shape. They obviously also had a mesh on the forefoot to fill out the areas that weren't all gonna be tape. But basically to give you that wrapped sensation, give you the lockdown where you needed it, and a very, very nimble feel. Their torsion frame, which they've used on a lot of boots since, that was a great outsole, to be fair. And the Nemesis never really got to the heights I think where Adidas wanted it to go, but I've enjoyed the Nemesis quite a lot while it was out, and feel like it's one of those boots I could revert back to from that era and still enjoy quite a lot. Obviously, we also have the Messis, and this is probably my favorite of the Messis. There is where's the first one? That was right here, the Messi 15.1s. That, by all accounts, it was solid. Had this hybrid touch upper, and hybrid touch is an amazing material. That's such a shame that the Pred 26s ditched Hybrid Touch 2.0. But back here, it was the first generation of Hybrid Touch, the synthetic leather, that was actually really, really solid. Perhaps not the execution it should have been after Adidas ditched the F50 Adizero, but it was okay. I could still put it on and enjoy it today. But to me, the 16.1s were simply better. They had a knit upper instead, and the shape was just a little bit better, super, super soft. And had the Messi Gambitrax stop pattern on the sprint frame, which is just a really, really nice outsole. And yeah, it also had that burrito style tongue that he enjoys quite a lot, which maybe I'm not I mean, it works, but it is what it is. There was also the one with the lace cover, basically, which was the Plus, Messi 16 Plus. That was fine. It was basically like the knit version of the X16 Plus. So just a little bit of a difference, but in reality they were kind of similar. Lots of cool ones, and initially the Messi, or eventually the Messi line transitioned into being the Nemesis, which I have right here, for instance. So that was the Nemesis Messi. It is what it is. And then this compartment contains what is one of my favorite Superflies ever, the Superfly 7, which is the generation where Nike also introduced their high tenacity yarns in the Flyknit upper, meaning that you got a really, really soft upper that also just had the structure and the lockdown needed. Meaning that you still got that very soft sock-like sensation around your foot that completely wrapped your foot, but it still also had enough like structural integrity to the upper, meaning that you got a very good lockdown. Also, of course, it had the anatomical plate, meaning that it was introduced on the Vapor 11 and the Superfly 5, meaning that you kind of sunk into the boot a little bit, and it felt like you were sitting in this race car seat that was sculpted around your foot. So instead of sitting on like a flat plate, you just sunk a little bit deeper into it. Really nice, lovely outsole here. Obviously the Mbappes are super cool. The Bondi Dreams colorway, absolutely smashing. And I mean, if you wanted to ever combat the Ninja Turtle nickname, this was probably not the right name or the right boot to release, but I love this boot. So many cool colorways to come out. I also made a Nike ID, which was actually really nice, and just lots of like the launch colorway was cool. This was amazing. Yeah, special boot that I actually still whip up to this day. You can see I've not cleaned the white ones yet, but I probably should. I can still whip it out today and go back and think, if they released this in 2026, I'd wear it. I could play a full season. I could play 2 full seasons in these and just enjoy myself. So one of the best Mercurial generations in my book, the Superfly 7 and the Vapor 13, which are they're here in a second, because we're going to talk about some other Mercurials where I have everything from the Mercurial Vapor 9 up until the Mercurial Vapor 11, and then a little bit of 13 over there. But basically, let's start with the 9 here, which was a refined version of the Mercurial Vapor 8. It had this Tahitian OLM upper with like the golf ball texture. Perhaps not, scratch that. It was just as good of an upper as the 8, which had the slightly more like suede-like finish to the upper. But this was also extremely soft, wonderful pair of boots. Never really fit my foot perfectly because it did run like a quarter of a size long. But other than that, it kind of brought, you know, the 8 and the 9 kind of brought the Mercurial back to where it had to be. With this super sleek, very streamlined, nimble, really fast sensation. Obviously the glass fiber, as it's called, plate. And it was snappy, it was light. It was a wonderful football boot. Vapor 10s, they were also very soft. Just changed a few things here and there that maybe I never really took that much to them. Don't get me wrong, they're great football boots. And again, a boot I could put on, go out, fully enjoy. Nylon outsole, fantastic. Really, really snappy and a very good alternative to the carbon fiber outsole on the Superfly 4. And the Tahitian OLM upper, I think it was the Tahitian OLM 15 upper on this one, which it can't have been. Was the 13 still? Was it the 13? Doesn't matter. Tahitian OLM upper on this one. Really, really soft as well. It had that style of tongue that kind of transitioned into the Vapor 11 as well. But I know this is a lot of people's favorite, and we're gonna talk about the upper later, but it was actually that last year, this style of upper with this style of release paper, so basically the final treatment, the final coating of the synthetic upper. Well, we're gonna see that on a modern boot as well, which is nice. And then of course, I forget. Vapor 9s, they also made it with this leather-like release paper, so it actually, well, it felt like a synthetic leather boot, which back in the day was actually really, really impressive. So 2013, having a synthetic leather that was this soft on one of one of the more special, but actually really, really effective Nike AG Pro plates. That was quite something. And again, a boot, if it only fit me a little bit better, I would whip it out a lot more. But we should talk about the Vapor 11s, the BA Gems, which is perhaps my favorite colorway of the Vapor 11, but it was nuts. Super, super thin Tahitian upper that had the little molded ribs to kind of mimic what was on the Superfly 5. And it was sensational. So again, we talked about this anatomical plate, really aggressive outsole. It was thin, it was light, it had the perfect like super low pointy toe box that just, the upper was soft enough to mold around, but was a tight fit, just like I like it. I mean, a Mercurial, you're supposed to feel it around your boot, really feel that razor sharp sensation on the ball, and just very, very, very special. What a shelf. I should have gotten more of those. And of course, I don't know why these are here, the Vapor 13 Mbappe Rose. But they're here, and also of course these. I don't know why I put them on the shelf, probably because of space issues, but the Vapor 13 Tech Crafts, which are absolutely phenomenal. So with the Alegria leather, which is this raw untreated leather on that outsole, with a suede stitch and turn heel liner. And I mean, there's not much to hate about these. And I probably, when the grass pitches open up in 26, I'm gonna have to get these out back on the pitch, because this is, yeah. Moment of silence for everyone who never got to try these. If you have the opportunity to get your hands on a pair of the Vapor 13 Tech Crafts, there are two variations. We're gonna talk about the other one in a bit, but get them. They are like out of this world good. Give you everything you need. Down here we have the Vapor 12s, I think more or less exclusively, which was kind of this okay in between Mercurial for me. They went from the Vapor 11s into this the Flyknit variation of basically the upper for both the Vapor and the Superfly, which they were okay. They were soft enough, but as you can see, it still has a little bit of like that plasticky rigidity. They of course introduced the split plate, which was fine. I never really took to it. I prefer a solid plate, but it was a good boot by all accounts. But I think kind of the middle thing between two boots that I love, the Vapor 11s and the Vapor 13s. So cool, but never gonna be my favorite Mercurial Vapor or Superfly for that matter. We also of course have the only pair of Flyknit Ultras that I have, which is regrettable. I would have loved to own the black and golds, but now that I only have the complete blackout, that's cool too. They never made in my size. And I know the world doesn't revolve around me. I'd like to think that it does, but it doesn't. So this is not, I think this is a size UK7, and I'm a UK6. That's the smallest size they made, so that sucks for me. But what a boot. Basically the first Nike dipping their toes into what would eventually become Gripknit, where they kind of work with like exposing the knit a little bit and treating it individually, and a wonderful, wonderful boot. So yeah, I mean, smashing, absolutely smashing. I wish they made it in my size. And Nike, if you ever bring it back, like a remake, regen, please make a size UK6, okay? Please and thank you very much. We move down. And this is where we have a lot of F50 stuff, amongst other things the F50 Plus, where obviously the first generation had potential with that outsole, but also made a decision on the upper going laceless that I thought was a really bad decision, because you have all this energy return from the outsole, and then, well, when you have that laceless upper that does have some flexibility and doesn't give you the hold and structure on top of the foot you need, well, you are gonna lose a lot of that energy return just fizzling out. So that didn't it was kind of contradictory to what they did on the outsole. So that was weird, but then on the second generation, they made amends and actually gave us, well, the upper from the Crazy Fast Plus, more or less, but with laces this time, which means that you can now actually really make use of all that extra spring and energy return you got from the outsole. Is it something for everyone? No, maybe not, but it's one of the most unique feelings out there. When you're sprinting, you actually get that extra like spring in your step. Yes, it's a bit more chunky than some of the other F50s, but with that upper, which is super thin on the ball. One of my favorite Adidas speed uppers in the last many, many years. When you combine that with something completely unique underfoot, it's actually a boot that, I mean, I understand where they're going with this, and they can build on this if they want to. Just a shame we haven't had more than this colorway out there, which for me, a 37-year-old guy, is probably a little bit too jazzy to really take to the pitch and be taken seriously. Then next to it, we have the regular F50 Elite, which obviously I do also have a pair of whiteout familiarization boots of. Wonderful. It has gotten really, really soft, that upper. And in general, the F50 it's a very good return for Adidas to the F50 line. Basically, you could argue that it's just a refinement of the X, crazy fast, the speed, what was it called? Of course, the speed polo, the speed flow. They've kind of taken the learnings into this. But to go back to the F50 name, that was, I thought, a really good decision. And cool to have it back, and solid speed boots by all accounts. Now down here though, we have a charger for our batteries, so that's cool. But also, more importantly, we have Mizuno boots. And a lot of the, should we say, this is kind of like the comfortable Mizuno boots, the classic Mizuno boots section, where we have everything from the Mizuno Morelia 2 or the Morelia DNAs, which is basically a Morelia 2 upper with a Neo outsole on, and it's absolute genius. It is one of the most comfortable boots around that I've ever tried on my feet. It has the most fantastic suede liner in the world, and the heel shape in general on the Morelia 2 is absolutely unrivaled. I mean, if everyone made heels like this, the football boot world would be a better place. And then of course on the Neo outsole, which is snappy and light and just works really well with the conical studs, it is an absolute dream to step into. I have the gold Morelia 2 ultralights, gold Morelia ultralights, white Morelia ultralights, which again, really, really solid boot. Could maybe have done with like the high bunny ear heel, but otherwise, really, really nice. Lots of Morelias. I have my Wave Cup remakes down here, as you can see, which I absolutely love, both in the white and the blue colorways. Some Morelia Waves, another Morelia DNA, obviously the rebuild pack, or the innovation pack as they call it, with the Morelia 2 Proto AG. Phenomenal. It also came in a regular Morelia. I have the Runbird, which is like a remake of the very first Mizuno Morelia right here, which is also fun. And yeah, like also Old Wave Igniters, of course. That's probably that's the remake. But this is kind of like my go-to. If things are to be really comfortable and cozy, I would probably just go and pick up these and just, yeah. Another one of those boots where if you told me I could only wear this for the rest of my playing time, I would not be too upset about it. I would actually be kind of okay, because they are wonderful boots. So are the Wave Cups, and Mizuno, if you're watching, give us more Wave Cup remakes, please, and thank you. But actually, let's stay low, and we're gonna stay in, well, Japan and the Asian region. I have just a little section of boots that you basically can't get in Europe, really, unless you take them home from Asia and Japan, which I have done. Special shout out to You Know Who You Are, who's helped me get a lot of the boots home from Japan. Special note, of course, goes out to the Asics X-Fly Pro 3, which is absolutely phenomenal. They have their synthetic leather called Silky Wrap, and it is special. And just like on Mizuno, their heels are just utterly ridiculously good. You know, lovely suede liner. It fits like a dream. The outsole is very, very good. And it's just a great, you know, really, really well-fitting take on like a comfortable speed boot. So, yeah, that's very good. I have some Adler Yatagara shoes right here. I have the Puma King Mirai 2 Ultimate, which is also very, very good. And I don't understand why they never brought to Europe. To be fair, the the Asics X-Fly 6, which is also wonderful. Silky Wrap is a fantastic material. I have some TLSS, and yeah, just a little section with Asian market Japanese boots that I also occasionally like to just whip out and enjoy. And of course, a little shelf with the Furon V7s here, if they can come out. V7s and V7 Pluses, which are also, they're actually very underrated speed boots. They have this super, super thin hypo knit upper. And they basically set the trend for where we are now with the Furon V8s, in that we have a very thin, super, super soft, very comfortable boot, a lovely, really nice tight fit in the heel, very snappy outsole, and yeah, they're just very good boots. On top of them, we have more Nemesis boots. Basically, most of them are like, no, they're not. Little bits of like high ones, the Pluses, and the low ones as well. So Nemesis 18s and 19.1s, I think. Do we have any 18s in there? Probably not. So the 19.1s, great boots, honestly. Just a little refinement on the 18.1s, and I never really took that much to the laceless version, if I'm being honest, but I actually liked a lot what they did with the 19.1s. A little bit of like the bigger strips of the agility bandage, but it worked. They were really soft, they fit very well, they had that good amount of tension around the foot. The outsole was lovely, and overall a boot that again, it's not that the market is missing it, but I think they just made a very positive mark, and I know a lot of people out there that genuinely appreciate these generations of the Nemesis. And then it's kind of cool, you know, they came in and kind of like took over from the Messis, Nemesis, new Messis. I don't know if that was ever the intention, but if it was, well, someone at Adidas should hire me for their names, because clearly I've got it all figured out. Right up here, what up? What a shelf, eh? And this should have been much, much bigger, because I didn't realize at the time how much I actually loved the Vapor 13s. They are absolutely, they're not goated, but it's close. For me at least, as being the best, my favorite. Isn't my favorite Mercurial Vapor? That's difficult to say, but it just might be. And to anyone else out there saying otherwise, I will not hear it, because they are absolutely fantastic. You know, again, basically like we talked about on the Superfly 7s before, they had that fantastic knit high tenacity combination. Obviously, they came out with amongst other things, this, which is obviously the Superfly 1 colorway, but on the Vapor 13, so we got the vibes, but still a really, really high-performing boot. Blackout's cool, the Neymar Speed Freak's amazing, the CR7 Safari remakes, or the colorways at least. So many good colorways here, and obviously also a boot I have worn, not to death, thankfully, but a lot. The other Vapor 13 Techcraft, which was special. You know, design took inspiration from the Tiempo 94 with this black-orange design. Even the insole had a logo inspired by the old Tiempo logo, which is really cool. But here you actually had the knit tongue, which to me is okay. I prefer a regular free-floating tongue, but this was so nice because you basically just had the knit up until here, and then the forefoot was basically just pure Allegria leather, and it was amazingly soft. I mean, you can see here. And I know, for people who haven't tried this, you might be wondering, like, why is this so special? But that is because you get the fit from the Mercurial, you get the outsole from the Mercurial, and then a fit that is like second skin. So absolutely wonderful, and yeah, the launch colorway is good, single day, good. I mean, I need more time to go out and play in these again. So yeah, there's that. And then of course we have the GXs, the GX1 DF, so the dynamic fit, which is obviously where Nike introduced us to Gripknit. We saw these on the feet of, I think it was Jack Grealish that wore them first in the World Cup, which people were like, what is that? And then obviously we got to try them on feet, and these were a bit of a revolution, to be fair. Gripknit is a wonderful material. Again, this combination of these individual coated yarns and then high tenacity yarns that give the individual coated yarns give the stickiness, and high tenacity yarns kind of balance out the grip and then also provide some structure to the Gripknit material. It had this, or still have this like sticky wax-like, spiderweb-like sensation on the ball. Lovely ghost lasers. Not necessarily a big fan of these, but a really nice boot, low pointy toe box. Solid outsole that could have been a little bit stiffer in the midfoot for my taste, but yeah, great boot, cool colorways, solid by all accounts. And then up here we have a little bit of a mix between the X18 and 19.1s and pluses, and apparently some remakes of the F50 Plus Spider Unisports. As I said, I have a lot of those. But yeah, 18.1s and 19.1s, the 18.1s here. Solid boots, this really soft mesh upper that had a lovely shape to them. Maybe looked a little bit high, but it actually transitioned nicely onto the foot. Outsole was definitely solid without being like outstanding, but did the job and was my preferred option between this and the laceless version, the Plus here. This is also an 18.1, of course. Then we have the 19.1 that did refine the upper a little bit, made it ever so slightly softer, so it was a little bit easier to break in and wear, but mostly felt the same, just slightly better. Let's dig out one of the laceless versions here, which to me was, I'm actually gonna say, I think these were better laceless boots than the current F50 laceless is. And I know people might be coming after me, but I think what they did here with the X-Lay skin was actually pretty solid. It softened up quite well. It's not as soft as it could be by today's standards, but it was pretty good. And the way they actually managed to lock the heel around your foot was solid. So a good laceless option that just, they came in a lot of different colors. It was never truly like a speed boot for me, and with the introduction then of the Speed Flow, obviously, things got a lot better, but like a solid, middle ground, something in between for Adidas, where it was good, but not like mind-breakingly good, if you can say that. Highlight is good. Come closer here, come closer here. This shelf with Adidas Speed Boot Remakes. Obviously, we should probably take this out. And this is gonna be a long, but no, I'm not gonna waffle on more about it. But obviously, Unisport F50 Plus Spider Remake, bringing back that colorway of the F50 Plus from back in 2005. That was in the gold film, so very special. I remember it. If you're old enough, you probably remember it. If you don't, go and watch it. It's a great film. We brought that back. It's a fantastic football boot. It might not be 100%, one-to-one with the OG, because the OG had a full leather upper with black stitches on. But this is like, we did our own personal take on it, and it's a really good modern football take. Great English, Jay. It's a good, really modern take on it, and a fantastic football boot in my book. Heel, chef's kiss. Put this heel again on everything Adidas. This is special to me, of course, because we had made this boot. We went to the Faroe Islands, shot some amazing stuff, and I was pumped. Like, genuinely pumped about this. What I didn't know was that Adidas had actually, they had my foot data from the Predators, so they went and made me a custom fitting pair of these as well. Made a little insole that says JM with my personal JM logo in there, and obviously custom fit in the top. My guys, yeah, words fail me. It's one of those things where I'm humbled beyond words, and it's just special, okay? For someone like me who's like the last 17 years of my life have been working with football boots, doing this, and to get, it's a sort of recognition as well. Like here you are. Special boots that you cannot buy. They're ridiculously expensive to make. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into to do that by themselves, to send them to me. I mean, yeah, it's kind of wild when I'm just a guy, I'm just a random guy who happens to love football boots. What else do we have? The black blues. I mean, cool. They're not as good as the Unisport in my book, of course, and I'm also very, very biased. Let's see if I can do this without them falling down. Then we also have the Battle Pack remake, which is phenomenal. So a take on the 2014 F50 Adidas with a Hybrid Touch upper. Then of course with the outsole from the Speed Flow on, which was a Also, great. Also, Carpetex insert here. A little bit of a raised foot. Really fun, very snappy, and arguably, it's a different feeling than the OG F50 Adizero, but what a pair of boots. There was also, these are gonna be tricky to get at. Okay, they're gonna go on the floor. That's the way it is, but these, or like, don't fall please, thank you. They also made a leather version, a different take than the OG leather version, but this was arguably even better. Stitch and turn suede heel, amazing fit. And this leather, guys. Nah. Really good. What else do we have? Lots of good stuff. Of course, also boot that came out this year. Don't fall, please, I beg of you. Yes. Yeah, F50 Adizero leather from 2010 remake, which is also a very good football boot. That if you got your hands on it, you will know what I mean. Other remakes of the first F50 Adizero in synthetic. We have the remake of the Primes, which were also really good boots. F50.6 remakes, not the best thing in the world, and some Adipure remakes, which they were okay. And then up top here, we have boots that, well, they're up top because if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I don't think I'm gonna pull them down and wear them much right now. They're not my favorite Ultras, to be honest. You know, design-wise, yeah, we had a lot of cool boots. The Dream Factory Unisport ones, but these were just not, they're not my favorites, this generation of the Ultra, because they are, like, they're a little bit plasticky in the upper. The heel is super shallow. The outsole is good, I enjoy that, but yeah, probably not my favorite. The generation that came out before, which is, let's see if I can get it down. No, not that one. I can't get that down. That's not gonna happen. We talk about these. The Ultra SLs are BMW, which were really fun. They are light, as in light. I think actually my phone weighs more than this, so that's ridiculous. But I would also not wear them in a match because there is zero stability and absolutely zero protection. Let's just see if I can dig out. So this was, to me, this was better. And an absolutely smashing colorway. Again, a Unisport collaboration boot, but still also a little bit floppy. Heel fit to me was better, had a little bit more of an anatomical shape, but again, not the best Ultra ever in my book. These are serviceable though. I could put these on and I'd have a pretty solid time when you break them in. But the generation that followed, it was not it. And speaking of not it's, I don't have many of them because I frankly don't really like it all that much. Predator Edge. Probably one of the worst Predators ever released in my book. It's close between the X and that. Nah, it's that one. Predator Edge. I followed up on the Mutator and the Freak with this absolute abomination of a really stiff upper. Loads of, there was lots of grip, that's cool, but just did not really like it. The 94s were solid because you actually had a leather upper on them, meaning that we saw that it could actually fit well, but it was nah. I was never really into it, to be quite honest. We also have some Copa remakes here, obviously the Copa Mundial with the modern tooling on, which was, that was solid. We have the remake, the knit remake, which was weird, but actually fit really well. So this was the one where they kind of flipped it. So the regular Copa has like this leather upper that consists of, obviously there's leather on the outside and then, you know, a textile, what's it called? It's not called Copa, it's called liner on the inside. So a textile liner on the inside. So here they flipped it so that the textile, the knit, is on the outside and there's a leather liner on the inside. It actually fits really well, but since it's untreated knit, I would not go to the pitch, and because you're gonna mess them up, honestly. And then the Copas, well, they're nice. Basically the 19 and 20.1s, like this upper package is nuts. It's really soft, but I just never got to work with this like rather stiff burrito style tongue, and the heel was never my taste. They had a lot of potential and the fusion skin upper is fantastic, but I reckon that the laceless version is miles better. So I haven't really worn these all that much. Now moving down, we have a little, not that big honestly, collection, and I regret that, but we have this little collection of Tiempos all the way from the Tiempo Legend ones that Michael, who's from Barcelona behind the camera, was when I pulled them out just before, he said, ooh. And you can understand why, you know, Ronaldinho. Studs have seen better days, if I'm honest, but it's just a nice, it's a nice little piece to have. A boot I should have brought recently when we went to the Nike headquarters, the Totti Legend 5 with this Allegria leather upper, which is stupidly soft and still serviceable today, actually. It's a great boot. I forgot how lovely the suede line on the heel was, and yeah. Nah, these are definitely going on the pitch in 2026. This is just the way it is. You know, Gladiator on the insole because he is the Gladiator, so that makes a lot of sense. Other Legend 5s on here is of course also cool. We have one of my personal favorite Legends to date. Maybe a little dated. Could do with the suede liner, to be fair. Jumbo Legend 4 Elites, absolute beauty. They still have this, not on this one, but on the other one, where they actually have the sizing in the, oh, it's there. Right, size U is 7, which is, it's just a cool touch. Legend 4, regular Legend 4s, and also the Legend 3, which is kind of a meh to me. We also have, obviously, the X Speed Portals, which was, how do I say this nicely? It was not the Speed Flow. It was okay, but it was not the Speed Flow. So, you know, decent pair of football boots, but to me a little bit too stiff in the upper for what it should be. It softened up okay as you broke it in, but coming from the Speed Flow, which is one of my, maybe it could be on my top 5 best speed boots ever, probably. Higher, maybe. It's not a bad shout, but I mean, they're not bad football boots, but they just maybe came out in the wrong order. If these had come out before the Speed Flows, I would have been like, oh, wow, these are a big improvement over the previous X's, but just maybe, yeah, the Speed Portals should, yeah, yeah, they are what they are. Here, some Magista CTR360 madness. A little bit of everything from, and this is the remake of the CTR360 Maestro 3s. Lovely pair of football, very one-to-one, which Nike do really well when they do remakes. I also have the Magista Opus, obviously from the Techcraft pack, which is nuts how soft this is. Again, still a boot that could actually be serviceable today. I have the OGs, Magista CTR360. What am I talking about? The CTR360 Maestro 1s. Would not wear these today, but this was back when they introduced Kangalite, which is also a synthetic leather and laughable in terms of softness by today's standards, but back then it was really special. Also some Magistas that should probably not have seen the light. I'm trying to pull these out without messing everything up. No, stay. Ah. This is why I don't. No, come on. These Techcrafts were a little bit of an abomination, very stiff, not really great on the ball, and yeah, no, let's not talk more about that. There was also the Magista Opus 2, which should just be forgotten about, because they, at least the first generation, before they actually fixed it with all these little zits on them. Launch colorway looked absolutely ridiculous, but they did fix it on like the update where the upper, actually really nice upper, mimicked more what was on the Ober 2. So that was nice. Down here we have more Nike GX, but the low-cut GX, let's take that one. That was launch colorway. Probably my favorite over the high ones. I just think they felt a little bit more nimble. I've been going back and forth between, you know, should I go high, should I go low? It's a matter of the day, really. But really nice pair of football boots. And again, they had that magic, they had that wow factor where Nike did something that they or no one else had done before, which to me is why the GX will always be special. So I had a lot of colorways of that, of course. Also a couple of it says Flyknit Ultra, but it's called the Nike Phantom Ultra, basically because they've taken the Flyknit Ultra and just made an iteration of the Phantom. Again, teasing what would eventually, the technology that would eventually become Gripknit. So that's nice. Did they ever? No, they never made these in my size either. So thank you. Come on, Nike. What? No! Oh my God. It happens. Literally, there are so many boots that are falling down behind that I have to dig out that I've lost count, which made counting them this morning very, very tedious and difficult. But anyways, the Nike Phantom Venom, which we only got one generation of actually, and a solid boot by all accounts, and tried to go back to the T90 Laser days by having these molded rips here, which felt great on the ball. This little honeycomb texture on the forefoot, and going with this little knitted semi-lace cover, which also was also interesting. We got a suede liner, which I haven't appreciated until recently how nice that actually was. Really, really lovely outsole on these as well. That kind of kept building on the, well, it's called the hyper-reactive outsole. It kept building on what Nike did with the Hypervenom Phantom 3 and kind of continued that line of thought into to the Phantom Venom as well. And it's one of those boots that maybe the upper needed some time to soften up, but a great little boot nonetheless, and some banging colorways. I mean, it maybe not the right boot to do the Airsym Tonal 92 on, but hey, love that colorway. Moving down, more Puma Futures. Again, perhaps not, they're not bad boots. I'm not gonna say that, but also they maybe aren't what the Puma Future was about initially for me. So actually they're very, very nice. You have the power tape to give you the stability. You have a super soft mesh upper, and the heel on this generation fit rather well, solid outsole, but I never really, I've never ever slapped them in my match day bag because I love them so much. I've enjoyed wearing them, but it's just a matter of, they weren't it for me, if you kind of know what I mean. And I think the first generation was better. Over here we have the Skechers SKX 01s. I do think I have the blackout prototype pairs here that, it is what it is. I have the black prototype pairs here that we obviously saw Harry Kane wear in the beginning when he was testing, and people were like, what is that Nike Phantom? And the thing is that this feels much like a Phantom GT3, only way, way better. Made by some of the same guys that have worked at Nike for many, many years, so they kind of you can tell that there is Nike DNA in especially this and the first Razor, but they're solid football boots. However, the upper was just improved tenfold when they moved to the SKX 2. Hurricane colorway though is cool. I like that. Some cool colorways. This is banging too. So yeah, solid boots, the SKX ones. Down here, just some turf shoes, some indoor shoes. That's all there is to it. Let's move on. And then we have a little bit of a tricky part of the collection, because I can't tell you how many boots I've actually lost to the void in between the shelves here. And width-wise in the room, they don't really fit, so we can just put them on perfectly against each other. So that's always, getting boots from in there is always a little bit tricky. So I'm gonna be careful. Up here we have different variations of the Puma King. You can see the first Puma King Mirai right here, which was actually lovely. Careful, Jay, do not lose it. And of course, we also have, on the toes, Jay. Oh, that is the Pantera Negra Puma King Platinum, which is nice. I also, of course, particularly enjoyed the first King Platinum, which was very nice. They feel slightly different, but still have that very, very soft, natural leather feel to them. So lovely. There's also, as you can see, I have a few. I have the King XL, I have the King, whatever this was called, and the King SL, which was really, really interesting. So, lots of different of the iterations of the King, which were then, obviously, they transitioned into synthetic leather, which was, I tried them initially and thought, okay, this is going places. This will break in nicely, and the shape is nice and sleek, and I can maybe live with the heel. And so my initial first reaction was actually very, very good. It just turned out that maybe the synthetic leather upper didn't soften up all that much, and the shallowness of the heel turned out to be a little bit of a problem. They got better, but I think where they are now with the King is a massive, massive step forward. So a couple of generations here of the Puma King Ultimate that maybe history won't be all that kind to. So they're up there, and they fall down every time I try to take a pair, so I'm not gonna do that. Here we have some Evo Speeds. some V110s, some V111s, which is basically Puma speed boot back from, as I like to call it, the Ronald McDonald speed boot, because, you know, for obvious reasons. These are a blast from the past. Not great football boots by any stretch of the imagination, but it kind of is what it is. There was also the V111s that were also, you know, they made the leather version of, come on. They also made these, the V111 SLs, which were, on the contrary, significantly better. They were sleeker, they actually had a really, really soft synthetic upper, and carbon fiber in the midfoot on the outsole. Maybe the outsole could have been more like, it was okay, but it could have been more snappy, but it was super, super, super light. Had a fantastic heel fit, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. There are also, of course, the Evo Speeds, which this is the leather version that was actually quite solid. The synthetic one was okay. Made a couple of different generations of the Evo Speeds that were, they never really got to the heights of the Mercs or the F50s back in the day. So they were always speed boot number 3 in my book, or they weren't at the top, let's put it that way. But they did at some point, Puma, make the Evo Speed SL, where they, this is the leather version that was really light, but they made, of course, also the, let's see if I can dig one out here. They made the synthetic one with the thin mesh upper. This was the boot where Puma basically put a sticker on saying that, yo, these are gonna last you 10 matches. After that, the warranty's gone. They might fall apart, and they were not the sturdiest thing in the world, but they were fun. I mean, one of the most minimal, lightweight speed boots you will ever have the pleasure of trying. They also made the, and I don't think I have them right here actually, they made what was called the SLS, which was a slightly sturdier version that also weighed a little bit more. So these weighed 102 grams, if I'm not mistaken. I think the SLSs weighed 20, 30 grams more. Still super lightweight, mind, but just had a little bit more structure and sturdiness to the upper. Down here, Copa 19 and 20 plus. So the laceless version of what we saw right up here, which to me was much, much better. Now, generally, I would always say, if you have lasers, you will get better lockdown, but the lockdown in these were solid. Heel was actually really good. And this fusion skin leather upper was an actual joke. It still is. The way this fits, the way this has the plushness around the foot is absolutely magical. And combining this with this super, super sleek fit in the midfoot, very, very beautiful, like a line down to the forefoot. There was volume enough in the toe to give you a nice fit. What like an elegant boot. Think prime Paulo Dybala. And you know, that's the feeling you got. And then next to that, we have the Jumbo Legend 9s, which were also solid boots. Perhaps not the best generation of the Legend. Kind of went back to basics with a little bit of like molding and texture on the upper. But for me, obviously, the highlight was the made in Italy pair, which was made in Montebelluna. Allegria leather upper, had a little bit of foam in them as per the Legend 9s, and were absolutely wonderful boots. They customized them for me, not shape-wise though. Nike, we still need to do that, but very, very cool. Did not take well to water. So if you took these, because this leather is untreated, it would soak water and get wet, and it would basically, on the Premier League pitches, Tonali was running around with like, these were very, very dark gray up until here, because that's where his boot had been in contact with the wet grass. So there's that, but what a pair. What a pair of football boots. Phew-wee! And then we come to the Hypervenom shelf, which is ridiculous, isn't it? We have the Regens, of course. We have the OGs sitting right next to them. We have the Hydras. We have the Hypervenom GXs, which was basically built on the Hypervenom 3 plate, but with an upper resembling the OG GX, Allegria leather upper, Brio cables in its still knit tongue, great shape, super light. I mean, this is a gem. But there's also like boots like the Hypervenom Phantom 2, which was an actual abomination. Going from the Hypervenom 1 to this, I have no clue what Nike were thinking, and also it seems that they realized that themselves and actually put out the Hypervenom 2.5, which much more resembled that honeycomb-like upper on the Hypervenom Phantom 1, but with the Brio cables in the upper as well to give just a little bit more stability. So they're actually quite nice too. And then of course the Hypervenom Phantom 3s, let me pull that out. That's a Nike ID, maybe just get these instead. The launch colorway, Jay, if you can take them out without falling yes. Which obviously went back to now my lights died. What the? Anyways, we'll just go here. So basically you have to Flyknit up with these little high density foam pods that were actually hardened up a little bit as you struck the ball to give you this very solid sensation. They were super soft. Obviously you had the Brio cables with the little threads to give you a little bit more lockdown and structure. Felt nice. Flyknit heel counter and Flyknit sock, of course. And this outsole is absolutely wonderful. One of the best like general outsoles that you can find on a Nike boot. So solid generation, maybe a little bit of like a far cry from the Hypervent Phantom 1, but solid by all accounts. And still to this day, I see a couple of people mentioning it as their like GOAT Nike boot. So that's fair. Still to me, the Hypervent Phantom 1 is unrivaled in this line of boots. Power! Unlimited power! Now that's sorted. We're down here with the Nike Phantom Visions, the 1s and the 2s, which were actually, there were solid football boots. The first one, maybe not so much. They had this really like flimsy sock that, what was the point? The upper was actually nice. They also introduced the quad fit mesh, which was basically this mesh liner that sat on the inside that could basically give you, like, it could move one way, but then as you applied force to it, it would tighten up, just like these Chinese finger traps. It would tighten up and actually give you the hold that you had inside the boot and that you needed, with the upper still being very, very soft. So quad fit mesh was really cool, but to me, the Phantom Vision 2 was infinitely better. It just fit better, had a much nicer sock construction around the heel, and gave you a lot of texture on the ball, super sharp upper, very nice shape to it, and felt like a very clean strike on the ball, and it looked beautiful as well. So enjoyable. In here, if we dig them out, we have some Under Armour boots going all the way back to the 10K Force Pro 2s. We have the Under Armour Spotlights here, which were fun speed boots, but I had forgotten how stiff they were. The shape was really good. They had the speed foam in the insole, which was nice. The heel shape was actually good, but this upper was stiff. I had actually forgotten how stiff they were. Obviously, we have the new Shadow Pro 3s, which are cool. Outsole's very fun, super responsive, but perhaps not. I'm not going to talk about these. They're not my favorites. Let's just leave it at that. Down here, we have some, well, little bits of everything. We have some Copa Gloros down here, which are great value for money boots. There you go, Copa Gloro 2s. Great value for money boots. I think 100 euros. Super soft. Calf leather upper, you have the tongue, and the outsole is not the best thing in the world. The heel it's a wide-fitting, relatively democratic boot that will fit a lot of people, but for the money, you can actually do a lot worse. Obviously, we have some of the Toni Kroos Adipure 11 Pro. That was just the 11 Pro, actually. The Toni Kroos 11 Pro 2s, which was a fun remake to get. We have some of the OG. That was not the OG Glor, but one of the earlier Glors from back in like 2016, I believe it was. And then some Adidas Glitch boots, which was this like Lego set where you had the inner tech fit sock and then you had these outer sleeves that you could kind of step into. Think of it as an X16 Plus just deconstructed. I think they made this first and then they realized, okay, what if we actually just put it together? And that became the 16 Plus. So that's nice. All right, man's gonna sit down here because down on the ground we have more of the Adidas Adipure 11 Pro goodness here. Obviously we have there we go, the 11 Pro 3, which that's actually also a really nice boot. I just forgot they had this little foam cage on underneath the leather, which gave it a little bit of structure, but it was still wonderfully soft, as you can see. There's also the 11 Pro 2, which is obviously of Toni Kroos fame. I don't have like the OG Toni Kroos colorway because back then I didn't know it was going to be important. But here we have it. I know a lot of players that still refer to this as like the GOAT, and maybe also influenced by Toni Kroos. And my co-presenter back in the day, good friend now, Jolter, loved these, I know, but I never really took them. Ooh, my blackout test pair. Love me. It's funny how back in the day, you know, the test pairs, the familiarization pairs were primarily black, and then they just swapped to being, switched over to being white. But yeah, love me some test pairs. That is very, very nice to have. Then we of course also have the, oh my God, the SLs, which were, it was a synthetic leather on the Adi Zero outsole, but one of my good friends, Joma, absolutely adores these. They're wild, on the wild side, but the fit in these is absolutely nuts. They're super light, obviously, and the Hyper Touch upper here is, it's good. Like, even by today's standards, obviously this is 11 years old, but these are very, very solid. We obviously also have the Copa, there we go, the Copa 18.1s, which were okay, but perhaps a little bit too stiff initially than I cared for. First 11 Pros, like, okay, Taurus leather and all that, but yeah, never really felt it with these. It was a little bit of shame because they came off the back of the Adidas Adipure 4s, which I have here, some glows, nice Adipure 4s, which were solid, but of course we also have the Adipure 4SLs, which are they're one of my like grails. Obviously I have a pair, I love another, especially the white one. Phenomenal pair of football boots, super soft, very thin leather upper, great shape, the nice tight fit in the heel. On the Adi Zero outsole, they are light, they are buttery soft on foot, and they feel absolutely insane still to this day. Am I wearing them much? No, because I wanna keep them in as good of a shape as possible, but I mean, come on, this is absolute class. What have we over here then? The first Glore, the Glore 15.1, I believe it was, which was also actually impressively soft for very, very fair price. It had the tongue, the fold-over tongue, and, you know, a really, really good proposition. Actually gave Predator vibes back before we knew the tongue would come back, without the rubber elements, of course, but that was very nice. And of course the Adipure one, which back in the day was this is softer than I remember, but yeah, like had this really sleek shape to it. Obviously the outsole by today's standards is ridiculously heavy, but it fits so well back in the day, had that OG look to them, and we actually saw a lot of players transitioning over from the Predator to the Adipure. Lampard, Kaká, I believe Del Piero also wore these, and yeah, that was a special boot back in the day. I loved it. On top of that, we have some Mizuno Rebulas, and that has been a little bit of a special one. That was the silo that came before the Alpha, so the Alpha is basically built on the same, like, not the same idea, but they took the fit from the Rebula and built the Alpha on. The first Rebula is here, which basically gave us that very, let's take the Japans actually. These are the Elites. The Japans basically gave us this really, really soft K-leather forefoot. It was built on this, that was called the CT frame, which was this foam cage, adding a little bit of like structure. Now it went off again. You kidding me? Well, we did take out the plug, so that's fair. But you know, low pointy toe box, lovely, and please clean your boots, Jay. But the shape of these was absolutely fantastic. Could the leather be softer? Yes, but that was because of the foam frame that gave it some structure, but the leather itself was obvious. I mean, it's a Mizuno boot. The Rebula 2s were, you know, still super soft leather. There was just something about the tongue construction, the heel, that I never really loved these, if I'm being honest, but the 3s, my God. What an absolute mess I've made of the laces here, but it is what it is. Look, when you wear all your boots as often as I do, and you just wear new pairs all the time, it's not all the time that I get to just fix the laces and put them in place properly and all that stuff, but I mean, what a pair of boots. It looks sick. And the leather is insane. They actually fixed the foam cage so it doesn't really hold the softness of the leather back as much as it did on the previous generations of the Rebula. And it is a sick pair of football boots. The heel is nice and high, has the perfect, Mizuno just know how to make heels, guys and girls. Perfect pinch, lovely suede liner, great outsole. And probably still to this day, one of the best like general outsoles out there, because the way it flexed, the way it had the perfect support under the forefoot here. Really great studs, lovely torsion bar here in the midfoot to give that stability. Nice flex too. And it's just immediately comfortable, very sleek. And again, I gotta go back out in these when the grass pitches open in 2026. So Rebel 3 was definitely by far the best of the Rebelers. Then over here, we have another silo of boots that, actually two silos. We do have a cheeky little Evo Touch down here, which was basically the boot that Puma made that you could technically wear barefooted, because you had that a little bit of like some grip elements in the back. Think Skechers SKX2, just not as crazy. But what a soft upper that was. Just one piece K-leather. My English is failing me, guys and girls. K-leather upper here on this knit sock, and it was soft and it was interesting. It had that really powerful spine here. Why is it not as powerful as I remember it? Well, that is what it is. My memory is hazy, but it was one of those boots that was really nice to put on and to walk around in, but I never felt it on the pitch, if I'm being honest. Then we have a lot of different generations of the ones. There was the 17.1 here, right here, which was solid, but felt a little bit rushed and never really did it for me, and the leather quality wasn't as good as it maybe should have been, and just felt like a little bit unfinished. The 1-1 was absolutely spectacular, also because of course we got to make a collaboration with Puma in this. This is the City Pack, where myself, Jolter, and PWG got to do like our own thing. I did the 1-1, Jolter did the Future, and PWG did a street shoe, and it was like, what a boot, man. Super soft leather forefoot here, ridiculous. Had these little like foam dots inside that made them a little bit, there was a little bit of like amplifying the touch on the ball. The midfoot was solid, lovely knit collar here, great shape in the heel. And the outsole was light, but had great rotational maneuverability, lovely push off, a little bit snappy, and was a beautiful boot. Of course, there was this generation of the 1-1 that actually came out after this 17.1, whatever this was called. This again, J-Make. That was nice that they put it on, but that was a little bit of a, so this came first. Then this came out, and then we got this one, which was, to me, the perfect way of ending that. So yeah, these one, I mean, the leather here was great, but it just never really hit home. And the last generation, to me, was definitely the best. But of course, you shouldn't listen to the ramblings of a madman. I called the 1-1, the last of the ones. That's not true. The 20.1 was, and that's definitely not the best. It had this mesh grid on the outside to give it a little bit of stability, and really, to be fair, very soft K-leather vamp, and a sock that was all right, but to me, just never really, it didn't hit the heights of the 1-1. I just forgot to say that the naming structure on the 1 series was weird, because you had obviously the first pair that was called the 17.1, then you had this one, the second one, that was the 18.1, that made sense. Then the 19.1 was not called the 19.1, it was called the Puma 1, which was weird, and then you had the Puma 20.1. Make it make sense. Somewhat, but yeah, I just had to correct myself there. Now we move up to basically lots of Morelia Neos. And if you know me, you know I love myself a Morelia Neo. I do believe that I have over here, we have basically the first 2 generations of the Morelia Neo. So I only have one of the very first generation of the Morelia Neo in this lovely green, orange, and black colorway, which to this day, I would say it's serviceable, but so much has happened with the Morelia Neo is that even though it looks the same, it's just more rough and not as comfortable around the foot. So the elements are still there, you know, suede heel liner. The shape is fantastic, and the material, of course, in the vamp, the K-leather is amazing, but it's just been much more refined. Obviously, the Morelia Neo 2 Japan is also a fantastic boot. Got a much better heel counter, which was still maybe a little bit too rough for my liking, especially knowing what it is today. But there's just no denying that the fit in these was still absolutely fantastic. They of course also made the Morelia Neo Beta, which is thin and soft and very, very, very lovely. Super fun boot to go out and play with, and just like a more minimal experience of the Morelia Neo. And basically this was one of the reasons that they transitioned into the Morelia Neo Beta boots, is that the Beta here of the Neo 2 worked. What's funny was that the Beta here was just because it was thin and light and all that stuff, and then the Beta became the knit collar version. So make it made sense, Mizuno. And of course they did that on the Morelia Neo 3, which was just, it still is a lovely boot. I mean, this and the Neo 4, they are very, very similar. There were some changes, of course, on the outsole, on the heel. But in general, I mean, this is basically Mizuno's Kaizen philosophy in full play here. That they fix little things all the time. They just take explore new avenues, and one of the new things was obviously the knit collar here, which was nice. I'll be honest and say that I still to this day prefer the free floating tongue that we got on the 2s, and you also have on the non-betas, which is sadly not available in your Mizuno. This is something we have to fix together. Bring back the non-beta Japan version to Europe, because the Morelia Neo 3s were solid, but then again, the Morelia Neo 3 non-beta would have been even better, but great boots that I have worn a lot of times and had a lot of good experiences with. Up here, we also have what is a fantastic boot, the Regular Cup, which basically took inspiration from the Mizuno Wave Cups and kind of merged them with the Regular 3. Gave us a slightly more traditional feel to the Vamp, where the foam cage had been replaced by these little foam pods. Still really, really, really soft. Heel is absolutely fantastic, had the same outsole on, and I've worn these a couple of times in 2025, and it just reminds me how good Mizuno are at making football boots. The fit in these, if you've owned them, you know when I say that it's absolutely unreal. And this, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a brand that struggle with your heels, Puma. If you struggle with your heels, go and look at this. Like, this is how you make a heel on a football boot. Look at this. It fits exceptionally well. But we should also talk about this. Let me stand up here, because what we have right here might be one of my favorite Adidas boots for many, many years, in the X Speed Portal, which is an absolutely exquisite speed boot. So you have a knit upper here, which is quite soft as you break it in. Maybe this, I haven't worn this one actually, but this one is maybe a little bit stiffer than you would anticipate when you got it out of the box, but as you broke it in, it quickly softened up and is actually very, very nice. And of course it's laceless, which you'd also think, okay, that's perhaps not the best thing in the world, but because it followed the same shape as the X Ghosted, which had this, I mean, I'll just put it on for you, just to let you hear the sound. You heard that? Let me do it one more time for you. Let me just get the, right? As you push all that was a bad example, but it basically made that little sound where it pushes all the air out of the boot as you put it on. Wonderful, wonderful pair of football boots. So many cool colorways. I mean, this is a highlight. Obviously, the launch colorway was special too. Oh my God. Singles day pair and all that stuff. And all of that was done on the back of the X Ghosted, which, as the name suggests, it kind of looked like it was a different time back then, but it had this like thin textile mesh upper, which was then coated with the silicone coating to give it some structure. And it was not the softest thing in the world, but it fit really well. Again, it gave that sound when you put the foot in, because it was so well shaped, and it just completely eliminated more or less all the dead space inside the boot. And while it was called Mirage Skin, I think it says on the boot right there, so that's great. It was maybe not the softest upper in the world, but it just felt fast. It felt really closely connected to the foot, and a very, very good laceless boot. And of course also introduced this outsole with the cup, and you can just like, Wow, that is a snapback and a half. Obviously also we got to make the memory lane F50 where we went crazy with that. It was like a thing where a lot of retailers got to do their own take on like a memory lane F50. Some brought back old colorways, some did you know, their take on older colorways. We just went crazy and basically just brought in, obviously we did chameleon purple from the first F50 Adi Zero. We did that upper. And then we went to the Adidas Crazy Light for inspiration with the chevrons here. That it was a different take. The old one had like this split design where they were kind of misaligned. But we just went for this in some of the same colors used on the Crazy Light, and the result is, I would say, memorable. It's a crazy boot. Heung-min's son wore it, of course, against Arsenal, scored that goal where he ran quite a long stretch and then just cut in and curled it over in the far corner. It was absolutely beautiful, and my phone blew up when he did that. Because obviously we'd had a big hand in at least the design. Adidas drove it home, brilliant designers as they are, and yeah, that was an amazing experience. And I told the son about it when we met, and he was just like, oh, you made those? And no, I didn't make these. It was a team effort, but that was special. That was special. And then from one of my favorite speed boots in the last 5 years to maybe one that does it a little bit better, the Mizuno Alpha 1. Let me just pull these out because I like to show off. That is my test pair of the Mizuno Alpha 1, which is, I've messed up the lasers, but it is absolutely beautiful. And this is the new one. I got 2 sizes to wear, so this is the fresh one. I think I have the other one at home, actually. The one I've really worn, because I've worn that a lot. Just wanted to keep the fresh one in the collection because it's just beautiful. And that was before anyone knew how awesome the Alpha was gonna be. Obviously, this really thin textile upper with the cage that we also saw continued from the regular line. That learning that they did to give it some structure. Super thin, very, very soft. Obviously had the zero glide liner in the heel that kind of grip your foot, zero glide insole. And the shape of this, they're using Mizuno's Engineered Fit Last Neo, so they're kind of updated last, which is just, it's the best shape out there. And obviously we also had the Carbitex insert in the forefoot here with the launch color. Carbitex insert here in the forefoot, which is this, not Carbitex, that was the X Speed sole. This is called Carvo. And it's not a carbon fiber material, it is carbon fiber-like. So Carvo in the Alpha, Carbitex in the, I've talked too much today. But also extremely snappy. Very, very lovely set of studs. Maybe not the most aggressive on the market, but very, very good and definitely up there. And as a package, this was the best speed boot I think I had seen for many, many years, and one of the most complete speed boot packages out there because of the fit, because of the lockdown, because of the responsiveness, because of the weight, because of the touch on the ball. It just did everything right. So a special boot that came out in a lot of cool colorways. I have worn the Alpha so much since it came out in 2022. But then as we move over here, and well, basically over here, we're gonna talk about that in a second. Well, no, let's talk about it now, because I just have a lot of Superfly 9s here, which is, I mean, we've had so many good colorways. And this, to me, was definitely a different direction from the 8, where you got this thin mesh upper. Also, actually a little bit like the Mizuno's, where you had this like Roman sandal-inspired design on the cage on the inside, basically ensuring that you got the structure and support where you needed it, but with the cutouts to make it as light as possible. Thin mesh upper on top, like this open mesh made it very thin, and as you broke them in, they became really soft. But they were also slightly wider, a little bit more democratic, and that pleased a lot of people. And then of course also introduced the zoomer in the outsole, this slightly bouncy, what should we call it, connected sensation, where there's just a different, it's just a different feeling as you push down. Nike said you were gonna get a lot of energy return. Personally, I didn't feel like I had more spring in my step than the previous versions, but it's just a different, like slightly more, you know, bouncy sensation. And in that regard, they are the fun boot. Great materials. Are they the best? Probably not, but they are really, really enjoyable. And I know a lot of the younger people, the young generations that have worn these that have absolutely adored them. Breaking them in, they are, favorite colorway here has to be the which is my favorite colorway. That's the World Cup colorway 2022, which is phenomenal, right? Okay. Then up here we have the Superfly 8s, which was also a really good boot. Let's not take that. Let's see if we can find the launch colorway. It is here. Because right here, we had quite a different approach from the Superfly 7, which, as I said, was one of my personal favorite Mercurials ever. So I was a little bit worried when Nike went into a slightly more, it was a slightly different direction with an even thinner mesh structure on the upper here, which was then backed by these different zones of synthetic that were underlaid. It had different thicknesses, different densities, some cutouts and all that stuff to do different things. But actually it turned out that it was indeed really soft. It had some nice structure on the ball, despite that thin mesh layer on the outside being really thin. Obviously it had a Nike Skin silicone coating. They call everything Nike Skin these days, but a really, really good boot by all accounts, and it just fit well. It still had that relatively sleek shape that at least I connect with a Mercurial and that I feel a Mercurial should have. Very nice anatomical outsole. We had that little torsion bar in the midfoot, so despite having that split feeling, you still had a nice, connected feel underfoot as well. And it was just, the Dragonfly colorway here is sick. And it's up to your personal preference and kind of your temper which of the 8s and the 9s you like more. But it wasn't as big of a, I expected disaster when I first heard about these, because the 7s were so good, but the 8s were definitely very enjoyable as well. And I've had some good times in these. Favorite colorway? No, it has to be that. We've had some strong ones, but these are the MDS. Nah, it has to be these. It has to be these, right? Dragonfly was sick. Right, now it's time to go on my tippy toes again, because right up here, we have a lot of other good stuff. As you can see here, I have the EvoPower 1 Stampers, the Why Always Puma, that Balotelli, of course, as you can see, famously wore back in the day before actually, I think it was just when they announced his Puma switch. So there are two versions of this. There's this one, which they made 250 pairs of, which I have, and then there's also the one without the Puma stuff on it. That's basically just the newspaper cutouts that he wore before being announced for Puma, that are only made in 6 pairs in the world. We have one, I think the left boot at the Unisport office, which is signed by Balotelli with gold, so that's pretty cool. But this one, 250 pairs, is relatively rare as well, and it's just a funny thing to have. And basically this was also the inspiration for the Unisport 30th anniversary Ultra 5 in the Ultimate and the Carbon version that we did, where we took this newspaper design and yeah, I just love this one. What's also up here, and this is a little bit of like an everything shelf, just where I have memorabilia right over here I want to keep, and of course some T90s, the Supremacy that was made for when Italy won the World Cup in 2006. I love the design of the Supremacy, really, really cool, and to have it in this gold with the 4 stars, of course, is just wild. And we even have a painting on the inside, I think, of the crowd, which is doesn't really matter, but it's just cool. It's just cool. You had this little window where you could put the flag back on the Supremacy, and it was that was a good boot. Slightly forgotten T90, but I've always liked it. Of course, we have the first Laser remake up here. Let's see if I can get it down with everything, without everything falling. Where Nike did another way where they did basically their 1-to-1 upper and then slapped it on the Hypervenom 3 tooling, which is a great idea because it's a great tooling. And it's a fun boot to play with. Obviously, the OG was like a tank. And this one just felt a little bit more modern, still relatively nimble, and just a, iconic boot. Who doesn't remember that commercial with the Sanchez boys, with Wayne Rooney just pinging balls at them? It's absolutely iconic. More or less the same color here, slightly more Volt, T90 Laser 4, also a good boot. Probably not my favorite Laser, but definitely pretty solid. And then of course, there's also the T90 Laser 3 Elite, which was probably my favorite over the regular T90 Laser 3 because it had the carbon fiber outsole and still had that very, very aggressive feel of the strike pods here, with the strike pods there and the little whatever grip elements you would call them that are actually very, very aggressive. And back in the day, that was really like the alternative to the Predator. And just like the T90 Laser 3 was a tank. The Elite a little less so because it was a, like, let's look at the OG here. As you can see, it's just wide and heavy, and the outsole was just like aggressive, and it looks like the Hulk, right? An angry Hulk. And this is probably the one boot I have that just screams Wayne Rooney, who for me, like as a United fan, is an absolute legend, obviously. But yeah, this is like the essence of the T90 for me, because it's just so extra, that boot, right? We'll sort that later, put it up there, because what we also have here, let's see if we can get both down. Of course they fell, but oh, look at this. Nope. Right. So what we have here, another pair of F50 Memory Lane Unisports, but as you will notice here, they have been signed by Heung-min's son, who we shot with. Great video. As I said earlier, Son is a boot nerd. So to basically come over and show him these and have him sign the boots, that was a big experience. And well, I'm never ever gonna wear these. This one though is also special, number 95 out of 1994. The reason that having this in number 95 is funny is that Unisport was founded in 1995. So while we didn't get, well, they made 1994 of them, so they could have made an extra special one, given us 1995. But now that that wasn't possible, then we got 95. So that was also pretty good. Let's pop that bad boy open, and obviously this was the first, like the launch. Oh, what a mess it's in here. This was like the launch colorway of the Predator 24, where they kind of brought back the OG colorway, but with the slightly more, you know, Bordeaux accents instead of the red, to make it look like nice and refined and elegant. And these should go back in here, so it looks good. Obviously we have the little plaque also in the box, which is very nice. You know, slightly shiny, mirrory plaque here with all the previous Preds, the names, and a little description here of the new one. Which is just cool. I love me a good presentation box like this, and this one, especially because of the numbering, is special. But let's get some of the other boxes down here to just go through what we have, see if I can get it without dropping anything. Careful now, Jay. I'm making a mess here, aren't I? Ooh, yeah, these are the Primeknit Samples. They are a lot of fun, really. They made, as far as I remember, they made 500 of these in the world, and it was basically the first venture into knit boots for Adidas. There wasn't a great boot by any stretch of the imagination. Basically, think an Adi Zero, but just done in knits and like individually coded knit. So basically you could say that this was like the very first dip into what would eventually become Gripknit, because they had coded the yarns individually, and it's just very stiff and rough and not very nice. Obviously, Luis Suarez wore these for Liverpool and he scored, I think it was a hat-trick against Man United, so I don't have the fondest of memories with this, but it's a really cool boot. And I know it kind of looks just like brown from far away, but if you come up close, you actually see that all the different yarns have the different colors of the Samba pack that Adidas released for the 2014 World Cup. So yeah, there's that. They're cool. Then of course we have one of my favorite boots I think I own, which is the Nike GS, the Green Speed, which basically is a boot that stands for Nike using a lot of biomaterials in this. You know, castor beans was used for the sole, some recycled materials and all of that stuff, and was just like a one-off boot. That's not exactly true, because they made two, but at the time it was basically its completely own thing, tooling we've never seen before or since, the GS2 at least. and just very, very special. They never made it my size, so I actually don't know what it's like to wear it, but my good friend Josh, you know him from soccerreviewsforyou.com, he said it was absolutely awful to play in, so I choose to believe him. But, I mean, if people look at this and don't think Neymar, I don't know what you've done with your life, but, I mean, absolutely iconic, this. And I wish they would somehow bring it back in a somewhat playable manner. 2012 pairs were made. I have pair number 82, and probably the first, I think the first real limited boot that I owned back in the day. I was buzzing when I got these, buzzing. What do we have here? Okay, in a Puma box we have the GS2. Okay, this plastic needs a little bit of cleaning, but same boot, ACC on the side here, and was worn by not by Neymar, but by his young proteges. Some upcoming Nike Mercurial players: Christian Eriksen, Mario Götze, Stefan El Shaarawy, Raheem Sterling, and there could have been a couple of others, probably two more. Eden Hazard, of course. And there's one more, and I forget, and you should let me know in the comments if you do remember. Don't know why I don't have the box for this, but they stay in this lovely Puma King Platinum 21 box. It's much better than the King Platinum 21 to have that box, so yeah, that's cool. And then these, which is probably the worst remake of the Accelerator ever. Adidas made this, the Revenge Pack, in 2014, where they did the OG Predator and the Mania and the Accelerator, but in Hyper Touch, in this really, really plasticky synthetic execution. And back then, you know, I thought, oh, this is cool. We get the Accelerator back and it's with the Hyper Touch upper. And the Hyper Touch upper is great, admittedly, but it was just never it. And when you look at the remakes that's been made of the Accelerator later, this is like not very good. But I have it, and it's part of history, and you know what? It's cool. Now let's get all of this sorted and back up there, and we move on to the next shelf. But the thing is that with these, we've cheated a little bit, done like the TV chefs and cheated a little bit, because most of these boxes are normally actually empty, because inside of these are some really, really, really rare and quite valuable boots that I don't normally keep here in the studio. I have them locked up in a safe somewhere else, in case somewhere gets the stupid idea to come in here and try and take some of them. I mean, good luck taking all 1,700. But I mean, just you know, to stay on the safe side. So we've actually taken the boxes down, put the boots in, so it looks like they're here all the time, but in fact they are not. Just so you know. Anyways, let's start from over here. Ooh, yes. I forgot I had this, but this is brilliant. Why did I forget I had these? Anyways, they're not my size though, so that's... No, they're not. They're size UK. Okay, so that sucks, but that would have been the best surprise ever. Just randomly find a pair of these in my size. But anyways, fantastic pair to have, brand new in box. And the 2014 F50 Adizero is, I think I've said it many, many, many times, it is one of my favorite speed boots, not just from Adidas, but ever. It just did everything right. And to think you could still take this out of the box if it was my size and play with this and enjoy yourself and think, oh, this is an amazing speed boot. Give it like a suede liner instead of this really, really smooth synthetic, and we would be talking business, my friends. And this is 11 years, almost like, yeah, it's almost 12 years old, because this came out actually in late 2013. So that's a special boot, and obviously you can see what Sakito have tried to do with the Scudetta, that they've taken heavy inspiration from this Adizero, and yeah, it's really good. It gives off all the vibes, right? But the OG also does something to me, and obviously it just looks iconic. So that was a great little surprise. Obviously we have this couple of fresh CD pack 1-1s. J-Mike, just for safekeeping. We also have the Jolter edition, which is nice, the future, with obviously his famous quote, "I'm always tired, but I never sleep." If you're OG enough on the Unisport channel and you were around when Jolter was here, you will probably recognize that quote. Another of the 1-1s, just in case. I mean, first boot we made, that was really cool. In a Mizuno Morelia DNA box, I have a pair of OG Pred Manias, which is, I think, the second pair I have, but this one is not brand new in the original box, but it's still brand new in box, and just a fantastic pair. And arguably, maybe not to me, but arguably the most iconic Predator of them all. And I think to many people, this is like the one boot they think of when they think Predator. And I know a lot of people to whom this is the grail. I'll explain more about what mine is in a little bit, but there's no denying that this is iconic. And I think if you're old enough to remember the World Cup from 2002, this it takes you back, man. Heavy like sin, and these studs could like legit kill a killer, man. You probably couldn't take this onto an airplane because it would be considered a weapon. I mean, these are big and sharp, and nah, man, look at this. Imagine being tackled studs up with this, especially with players nowadays wearing like, you know, Tony Kroos shin pad style, which are non-existent. I would no, that would definitely not be happening. This one is special because this is the original box with a pair of Predators, OG Preds inside. SG, of course, way too big for me, but just fantastic to have in the collection. And it just really goes to show, you know, how far Predators have come since 1994, but also where the original vision started. Obviously, Craig Johnston, who is the brains behind the Predator, had this idea. He was training kids, so he's a former professional, played for quite a lot of clubs, obviously Liverpool, so that means that I shouldn't like him all that much, but it is what it is. I do like him. He had this great concept where he was coaching kids and he was trying to teach them how to apply swerve on the ball. And basically he told them to use the boot or hit the boot like you would hit a table tennis ball. But the kids say, Mr. Johnston, basically a table tennis bat has rubber, it's sticky, and a football boot isn't. So Greg was like, oh, that's a good point. So he actually went home and, you know, stripped the table tennis bat off the rubber coating, whatever, the rubber piece, and he just put it on a football boot, like really crudely, and it was like a rough prototype and all that stuff. But then he started testing it out and realized that, hey, this is actually working. So he made tons of prototypes and actually took it to Adidas, and they were like, nah, that's a bad idea, that mate. And he was like, okay, that sucks. But then he insisted on taking the boots to the leadership at Bayern Munich, who obviously are very closely related to Adidas. And they liked it. He recorded that, went back to Adidas and said, look, these guys, they love it. Shouldn't you consider it one more time? And then actually the testimony from those players, from the leadership, ex-players, I think it was, meant that Adidas actually took it on and made it. And the rest, of course, is history. But yeah, fantastic boot to have. Obviously would never ever work today, but with like the remake of this that they did, and I don't know, I have it somewhere here, might actually be over there. I'll find that in a bit, but the remake gave some of the vibes from this just in a more modern package, and really cool. Yeah, there we go. It's just also just back in the day, like seeing the big labels you had on the, it was just a different time, right? Anyways, what else we have here is a pair of Adidas 11 Pro SLs, which is one of the most spectacular Adidas boots ever, and just does everything right. It's on the Adi Zero outsole from 2014. The My Coach Bubble, didn't love it, but hey, it was never really in the way either. This is a fantastic stock configuration, fantastic stock configuration that just did everything right. It had nice pivoting. It was super aggressive in the ground, and just had the surfaces, the flat surfaces were just there. no matter which direction you were braking or pushing off in, it just had grip. It was super light and loved that plate. And this just, it does everything so right. Suede liner, could be better by modern standards, but this kangaroo leather forefoot, my friends, it is unreal how soft this is. And if you just imagine putting this on, it's super light. It is wildly comfortable to the point where it's, you know, it's a little bit offensive to other boots because it's just so miles ahead of everything else comfort-wise from that era of Adidas boots, in my opinion at least. Such a good package. I've worn it a couple of times, but just I'm gonna try and keep it in as good condition as possible because that is special. And of course, another boot that is special to me, the Wave Cup Legends, obviously the remake. I just have a fresh pair just because I love them so much and I couldn't live with myself if I've only got one and then wore them so much that they broke. So yeah, that's just good to have in the actual box. That's the thing, when I, for some reason, don't have the box. Some of the older boots, I didn't know what it meant to have like the OG box with me, so I threw it away. I had the boots. And now I need to store them somewhere. So I just take whatever box I have left over. Anyways, now we're getting into the goods. I'm actually gonna save this for a little bit later because I also just wanna take a look at this, which is another pair I should have brought to the Nike World headquarters when we saw Totti. Obviously his Legend 6s, which are made in 2,500 pairs. I have number that's not true, number 988. And it's like, it's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. And you know, burgundy, shiny outsole, you know, the Roma colors on the inside, it just hits different. This one, I've never worn this particular pair, I couldn't get myself to it. And it's just funny, you know, Totti got his fold-over tongue, which when we went there, Totti actually preferred the Leggera Pros because of the tongue, and he wore it. And I don't know if you remember back in the day, but Totti wore his tongue like it was really far pulled down to the point where it looked a little bit ridiculous. And we walk out there, and Totti's in his boots, and I spotted from like a mile away that he's done it again. The tongue is still down there, just like it should be. And it looked exactly like it was supposed to with the 8th King of Rome. I love that. Love that. And a really nice guy, Totti, as well. These are the rare golds, eh? Also, funny story, they made these in 333 They're that beautiful. 333 pairs were made. Obviously, this is like the boot that was made for Cristiano, at least the one that was launched to the public when he won one of his Ballon d'Ors. The thing was that back then, Cristiano wore a Superfly with a lower sock and a slightly different knit structure and all that stuff. But basically, Nike did not release this player issue to the public, which they should have done. That would have been cool. But they released the regular version. It was made in 333 pairs, and I really want one. You could only buy it on Nike.com, and I was actually doing an episode for national TV in the Unisport store when these dropped. So I missed the drop, and I was like, I wanted these so bad. So actually, I managed to buy them second-hand, you know, off a reseller for what back then felt like way too much money, but now I realize I got them for a steal. So really happy to have this, and this is probably, I would say, they're not my grails, but they're probably, you know, they're top 3 of boots. Some of the last boots I'm gonna sell if I ever sell up from the collection. What we have in here is a pair of What the Mercurials, Superfly 4, also with graphics from iconic Nike Mercurials. Cool, not my size. Would have been cool to have my size, but it is what it is. What do we, oh my God, yeah, okay. Mate, these are so good. I love me a Vapor 3. And I think if you asked me for many years what my favorite Vapor was, Mercurial was, I would say the Vapor 3s. They were special. Would I enjoy wearing these today? Probably not. I mean, we've all heard the stories or experienced it ourselves that Mercurials back in the day were just built different, in the sense that they were basically built to give you blisters. I know that was not the point, but most of them did. To me, the 4 was worse than the 3, but I also know a lot of people who said that the 3 was worse than the 4. So it is what it is. Had the little carbon shank in the heel, which was nice. Obviously the split plate as well, the little islands as well, but it was just, it was a fantastic boot, the 3. And obviously this one is the 10th anniversary of the Mercurial, celebrating that iconic Mercurial R9 design, but in black and white instead. And it is magical. Obviously they got Ronaldo to wear it for a commercial, and Nah, these are amazing. I don't have in my size, which is probably a good thing because I would just have worn them and that would not have been good for anything or anyone. So let's jump into these. We're gonna save the best for last. Here we have a pair of the Vittorias, which are cool. 777 pairs made. And, you know, Superfly 5, cool. I'll be honest and say, you know, a CR7 celebration boot is always special, right? But especially since they started making them in more pairs. I mean, we went from 100 pairs of some of these to 333 to 777, and it's just, okay. Like, yeah, cool. They're not my size either, so I wanted to have them, and then I kind of realized I don't really care all that much. Which one of these should we open first? No, let's go with this one. No, that one. We go for this one. Yes. 15th anniversary Mercurial, where they actually made 2 versions. So they made this that was available to the public, and I think they made 1998, of course, to celebrate the original release of the Mercurial R9. And it was a Vapor 9 made with this like leathery finish, again to mimic the KNG 100 from the original, but it was really cool. And you could argue that some of the colors maybe wasn't the yellow that was on the OG. They used a Volt color to make it a little bit more vibrant and youthful, but obviously I've never worn this, but it was just a really good boot. And then they made 15 pairs of the chromes that were special. You could only win them. We had one to give away. They were given to perhaps the biggest and at least the most knowledgeable Mercurial collector out there, a guy called Joe Seaborn, who's absolutely brilliant, and one of the guys I've learned the most from when it comes to football boots. So that was very well deserved. That is one of the boots I have come to live with. I will never own, but would love to one day. This is not gonna happen. So I'll have to make do with these, and they're great to have. The good thing is that I'm not too unhappy because I have these two, which are probably the grails of my collection. The first one is this, which is absolutely phenomenal. There are only 100 pairs of these made in the world, and I have number 14. The reason why number 14 is special to me is that it's one of the kit numbers I've always worn. I've basically switched in between 14 and 19, depending on my teammates and what else they've wanted to wear, but absolutely special. And as you can see, they have been signed by Cristiano Ronaldo himself. Obviously, the signature is fading, which is bad. So if anyone out there know how to like preserve a signature like this to prevent it from fading, that would be really good. I would much appreciate the help. Thank you very much. But these are absolutely special, and I mean, perfect pair. What a pair! And the fact that they're only made in 100 pairs worldwide makes them even more special. Let's leave them like that. On goes the lid, and of course I have the other pair that was made to celebrate his very good season he had in La Liga, where I don't remember the numbers, but it was in 2011-2012 where he scored 60 goals. It gave you this little card with all the details on it. So that was cool, and the boots themselves are also really nice. Again, a boot, you know, some numbers on the heel that signified his season, and they're just nice. I mean, simple, yeah, but a beautiful boot. And the fact, again, that there are only 100 of these in the world. I have a pair in my size, absolutely phenomenal. I don't rate these as highly as I do the white, black, gold coin, the ones with the signature on, but these are very, very much out there. I remember getting these and being absolutely pumped back in the day. So boxes are gonna go back on the shelf. These are gonna go back in the vault, and we move on. Right down here, actually, there's some sort of order to my collection because having Superflies here that then transition to the Vapor 14s right here makes a lot of sense, right? Man thought a little bit about it. But anyways, Vapor 14s, basically the same as the Superfly 8s with this layered upper. Also, of course, came out in the beautiful Dragonfly colorway here, which is just very, very nice. I think with this boot in particular, I actually prefer the Vapor. It's a little bit up and down. Again, mood on the day and all that stuff, but I think with the color on the Superfly, I think this one was just a little bit more appealing to me at the time. It's been going up and down between the generations and how the color has been, but I think for this one, I preferred the Vapor. I did make, with my friend Josh for our podcast, I did make a Nike ID. As you can see here, it says J on one boot. Does it say Mike on the other one? I'm a freaking genius, aren't I? Creative genius. Someone should say. But always fun to do like these Nike ID things, and you know, a little bit of again, my videographer Micha, the guy behind the camera, he's from Barcelona. He will enjoy these because they are blaugrana, as you can see underneath. A little bit of navy, some red, some gold. Beautiful. Not that I'm a Barcelona fan, no, but I love these colors. And is there a gold? Yeah, that was cool. That. Then down here we have Superfly 9s, just like we do over here. Actually, they took up so much space that I had to move into the other shelf a little bit. But yeah, Superfly 9s. And again, it was a little bit of a different thing coming from the previous generations, the Superfly 8s, the Vapor 14s, into the Superfly 9 and the Vapor 15, where again, Nike made it a little bit more democratic, slightly wider, different construction on the upper, where they went away from this compartmentalized upper and you know, the different components that were doing different things, and now they just gave us a mesh upper with this Roman sandal thing. So all good. Cool, some cool colorways, some strong colorways, and I think this is really where, again, a lot of you guys will have grown up with this. These were cool. These were cool. 25th anniversary. They were well nice, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, you should not have worn those, but I did wear them for a video, and yeah, they came in this. I think we have the box somewhere down there. This gigantic. Let me just go get it. I think they're down here somewhere, where it's like came in this humongous box. Look. Absolutely ridiculous. Incredibly hard to store, by the way. That's why it's down in the back. But just really cool pair. That has to be my favorite of the Superfly 9s, I would say. But some strong ones, obviously the World Cup ones. Yeah, we talked about that. Great. I already forgot we talked about that like a minute ago. Anyways, let me put these down and we move on. So down here we have basically the first generation of the Puma Ultra, which is actually also the second generation. That's not true. But the first and second generation of the Puma Ultra, which was at the time when it came out, a bit of a revelation. Like Puma actually making a speed boot that could compete, and if not, potentially even be better than the Mercs. And what was out at the time, the X's from Adidas. And it's just like okay, well, yeah. Depends on how you look at it. But at least this was a really good football boot. What Puma did here with the Matrix Evo in the upper, they had this really soft textile upper, and then they had these Matrix Evo yarns that were basically woven into the upper here to give it a little bit of strength. It was both really soft, and it had amazing structure to it as well. It was super light, had a really good shape to it, nice lovely pinch on top of the heel, really good outsole. Again, just the snap was there. They said you could use it on FGAG. That was like you would not use these on AG. And I know it was for warranty and all that stuff. It's like a disease that's still there, where brands go out and say, oh, you can use these boots for FGAG, but what are we getting? This is an FG. It's a very aggressive FG boot that you should not use on AG. And yeah, let's just move away from that. Lots of beautiful, beautiful colorways of the first Ultra. I mean, the launch color is still very much a favorite, just because it just looks fast, right? But then obviously also the drip that we made with Puma, 1 out of 95 here. So not many of them are around, but basically a boot that came, I think this is even, might not be one-to-one, but more or less one-to-one with the file. I was sat over a Christmas, you know, designing in Photoshop, putting all of this together, and then obviously the Puma designers took it and made it like work. But to still have this boot around and like have taken it out of my brain and fingers in Photoshop and actually have it on a pair of football boots is crazy. The drip, love it, smashing. What else do we have? Then of course the second generation of the Ultra. Let's see if we can dig it out here without causing too much chaos. Well, we'll just take this one. Well, obviously Puma switched things up a little bit. They went for a thinner mesh upper and like a more prominent cage underneath. They still had some Matrix Evo back here, but it wasn't quite the same. It was a lot more rigid. It didn't have that same like super soft padded slipper-like sensation, but it was thinner and it was lighter actually, still had the same stupid FGH out. So that was really, really responsive, to be fair. And some great colorways of that as well. Amongst other things, the Barbershop Ultra, which is also, yeah, nah, that's also special. Some people asked me if they were lightsabers, and that's a good shout. It would have been really cool if it was like a, you know, a Sith versus Jedi kind of thing, but it's not. It's actually, you know, the Barbershop neon signs with like the neon stripes on the poles and all that stuff. So it's a really cool boot. And the funny thing is that we actually made it so the design is normally when you make a boot, you would have it basically just mirror the design. So these stripes would be going that way on the left boot and that way on the right. But we specifically asked Puma to make it so that the stripes would basically be continuing in the same direction across the two boots. So if you have them like that, it's like basically the stripes are continuing in the same direction. Yeah, so that's a cool little one. Obviously, we also have the Ultra SL, the rematch boots, which is obviously, you all know the cars, which are, I believe they're the fastest cars, at least the fastest electrical cars in the world. And Puma went out and made this collaboration where they made this super thin knit upper that might be the lightest boot they have ever made, but probably also the most fragile. As in, you know, it is, yeah. I remember wearing these and was like, no. Even for the playtest we did, I was like, nah, that's not gonna happen. Then over here, let me just get the drip back in place here. Come on. Right. Then over here, oh no. Before we do that, let's also just talk about this. Same generation, second generation Ultra, the Sakura, which is another collaboration with Unisport. We've had some absolute bangers on the Ultras over the years, to be fair. Great idea from one of my colleagues called Oscar, and he really wanted to do this. Take the cherry blossom and put it on a boot. Obviously, it's very synonymous with Japanese culture. You know, cherry blossom season over there is crazy. If you've ever seen it, it's nuts. You know, they bloom on all the trees, these white or pink flowers, and it's fantastic. And we wanted to take that, put it on a boot, and the result was spectacular. Is it bold? Yes. But is it wildly cool and unique? Also, yes. So we're really happy with and proud of that. And of course, we should also mention like the first teaser generation of the Ultra One, which, I mean, it's cool to have. Get that in there. And then we move over to what I think is safe to call a little bit of a disappointment. The Copa 21. It was called the Copa Sense, and it just never really hit the heights it should have. To some people, it was probably better. It incorporated some foam in the upper to give you like these elements that had a slightly more dampened touch and a bit more elegance. And yes, the silhouette itself was a little bit more streamlined, and you could argue that in some ways it fit a little bit more like a glove than the 19 and 20 pluses did. But to me, it just never really hit the heights as I said, that it should have. And the heel probably wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the best thing in the world. It had these parts that were, they were a little bit stiff. The heel itself was stiff. The heel count was probably like too aggressive and encapsulated the heel too much. And it was just, it was solid, it was okay, but coming off the back of the 19 and 20 plus, to me, it was a little bit of a disappointment. What was fun about this generation was that they actually made this, which is the Pred Cup X, where they actually took elements from the Pred, the Copa, and the X. So you get the mutator fins. Now, these are the freak fins, right? These are the freak fins, obviously. But you get the Copa body, basically, so you get a really, really soft leather upper here, which was way softer than what you got on the regular Copa. That was weird. And then you got the X outsole with the Carbitex insert and all that. So really, really cool boot, very weird. Colorway is absolutely outrageous, but one of the boots that I think proved that Adidas had some really cool technologies, and if put together, they made for a very, very, very interesting little cocktail. And you're just like the freak elements are still just absolutely nuts. And then down here we have the Predator Freak, the pluses, which has one of the most ridiculous silhouettes you'll probably ever see again on a pair of football boots. It was basically the evolution of the Predator Mutator 20 plus, which obviously set the tone with this really, really high heel color. It felt a lot better, to be fair to Adidas, than it looks. It looks really, really stupid and obnoxious and like it's gonna be in the way. It never really was, because the curve they had on it was really nice. But it basically just took the Mutator and refined it a little bit. And yes, then they put some of the rubber elements on the tongue piece for looks and vibes, because I don't know anyone needing to use that part to kick the ball ever. But it was there, slightly fewer elements than on the Predator Mutators, but still really, really, really aggressive and grippy on the ball. And just one of those experiences that are wild and crazy and out of this world, that took me a lot of adjustment actually to not constantly fall over and trip on the ball when I tried to use it. Demon Skin was something else. They made a lot of really cool colors of the Freak. There was obviously the equipment colorway using the original equipment green. There was the Stella McCartney colorway that was made for Paul Pogba, which was interesting, 100% vegan. And I don't really know how the other boots are not vegan, but that is what it is. They also made this absolute abomination of a boot, the X-Men, the Wolverine, which I just never really took to. But it is what it is. Some good ones, but to me never really hit the same heights and are not as iconic as the Mutators, because the Mutators they were the first ones, and these just kind of continued that trend until Adidas completely screwed up and made the Edge, like we talked about earlier. Now over here though, in the next compartment, I have the Speedflow 0.1s, which I don't know if I like these more than the pluses, but they are different, and the good thing is that they have laces. I really, really do love the pluses for their prime knit uppers, but they have this mesh upper with a little bit of a cage inside. I'm not sure if you can see if we look at it in here. You see the cage on the inside to just give it a little bit of structure. And I think performance-wise, I would say these are better, but it also doesn't have the completely same like sculpted feel as the pluses. But they are very, very, very good football boots. And we've had some good ones. This was actually the first colorway they did. The Messi, obviously taking it back to the F30s that he wore back in the day with that same iconic design, and just really, really cool. Which is my favorite of these? Probably is it the OG? Nah, it's probably gonna have to be these actually. I think that is probably the best I have. Yeah, Yeah, gotta be. What a lovely football boot that I don't have nearly enough of either. It's like I realized that they're good at the time, but I just don't realize I need to stock up on them so I can really just like hammer them and wear them a lot. I should have done the same with the pluses. What a boot, man. What a boot that was. If we move down here then, we have some of the older Predators have just a little bit of like everything down here. I have the Pulses, which is never, they were good solid boots, but never really, you know, they're iconic obviously. Yeah. They never stood out to me. Neither did the Absolutes, and I don't know, I have this pair which doesn't actually have any striking elements on this foot, which is weird. So it must be some sort of sample or player edition. I'm not really sure about that, but I mean, the OG did in fact have the striking elements there, but you know, they were good boots, but I just never, I had a couple of pairs of them, but just never really felt like that was that. It's not on my Predator Mount Rushmore, that's for sure. This one is, and I talked about, you know, a lot of people having where's my Mania right here? Did I pack away my Manias? Oh, they must be somewhere else. Maybe those are the ones up in, I do have another pair somewhere. Maybe it's at home, that doesn't matter. But to many people, the Mania is like the Pred, their favorite Pred. To me, it is the Accelerator. And you could argue that the Mania is probably, it is a better football boot. It's not as heavy, it's not as chunky, and it's way more comfortable. But the Accelerator to me is just the Predator. You know, the big wavy stripes on the side, the feet you wear outsole. It's just, and you know, the rubber elements, they're not as aggressive as the Mania either, but they were just so powerful. And you know, striking the ball in the Accelerator just felt different back in the day. So have those, obviously have the Precisions as well, which have been brought out a lot lately again, and it was like a good middle boot for me. Also, of course, very iconic. I remember seeing back in the day, that was the time where you mostly saw black boots, right? And then occasionally we would meet some of the, I played for decent team, but we would meet some of the good local clubs that had some players that were like going to youth national team camps and all that stuff. They had all the high-end boots, right? And there would occasionally come a kid with the silver and black and red Precisions, and we would all go like, oh, you just know he's so good. That was back in the day where, you know, the good kids had the good boots. Obviously, the boots doesn't make the player, but we all just thought that. I have a pair of Predator Instinct SLs here, of course, which was crazy in more than one sense. It had this absolutely ridiculous dragon design on it. Probably, you know, continuing the inspiration, we saw it on the 11 Pro SLs as well before that. It had this like almost Y3 Yohji Yamamoto inspired design from back in the day on the Adizeros. Kind of took that onto the Preds here. It's actually a really good football boot. Super soft Hyper Touch upper, like some very aggressive grip, super powerful on the ball, and then on the Adizero outsole, like they did with the SL boots back in the day. I just probably would never wear it because it looks probably a little bit too jazzy for me. We have the Pred LC1s, the Pred LC 2s here. Obviously we have the Instincts, and I don't know where the other half of that is. It's probably hiding somewhere, maybe down back. The cool thing is that I also have a pair of familiarization boots all the way back from the Predator LCs, which was obviously a big departure from what we knew in the sense that it went into Hyper Touch, and it just never, did they call it Hyper Touch back in the day? I'm actually not so sure. Could have been, but you know, they went into these 5 different elements where basically the pros had sat down and they had painted zones on the boots saying there, okay, here I want a little bit more precision when I'm trying to you know, use the toe to curve the ball. Here I want that big striking surface to give like a little bit more power and a little bit of grip as I strike the ball. Here I want something for my first touch, here I want something for when I'm dribbling, and a slightly more padded zone for when I'm striking the ball. So lethal zones giving you a lethal touch on the ball. It was solid, but I would probably say a lot of people would maybe argue that it wasn't in the spirit of the Predator at the time, and there was a lot of outrage. Probably more of like a pendant to CTR360 Maestries at the time. Solid boots, but yeah. It's a piece of Predator history that I reckon a lot of people will probably want to forget. And I think with the Instinct, I think a lot of people thought that the Predator kind of got back to more where it should be. It was a little bit more powerful. It had a little bit more like body behind it. It was a little bit wider and perhaps a little, you know, dipping their toes into what the Predator would eventually become again when the 24s came out. Then obviously after this, the Ace came about, and we had the whole Adidas reshuffle. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let me just get these all back on the shelf and we can move on. But before the Predator came back in 2024, we did have, obviously we had the Aces in between. We had the Ace 16 Plus Pure Control, 17 Plus Pure Control, and then the Predator actually came back in 2018 with the Predator 18 Plus, which was this one. And if we're being honest, it's probably just more of an Ace 18 Plus that was rebranded to Predator, because it doesn't have any striking elements on it at all, which at the time was a little bit of a crime. But it did have these, like a ribbed upper to give you some sort of sense of like a little bit extra when you wanted to put swerve on the ball. So I think it was just kind of Adidas testing the waters on what is the desire to have the Predator back. And the desire was huge. And obviously they made the 18 Plus, they made the 19. This is the 19.1. That's in the wrong place. That needs to go up. Where should that be? I'm confused now. But anyways, we're just gonna leave that here. 19 Pluses would be down here. And the only difference was that basically the 19 Plus had this rubber piece on the heel that the 18 did not have. The funny thing was that I also have this pair, which was made for the pros with a leather forefoot and a slightly lower collar. I've actually never worn it because they're special, but they for some reason made their way to the Asian market, and I got a friend to grab them for me, but they were basically only made for the pros. And some pretty cool colorways coming out, obviously for the World Cup, inspired by the final ball. So that was pretty nice. The Pogbas are cool too, I think. Do I have them here? No, but this was a special colorway as well. Love that, of the 19 Pluses. Do I not have them? I mean, we have these, yeah. Do I not have the black pair of the Pogbas? Maybe I don't have them right here. Anyways, that is the Predator 18 and 19 Plus. Let's just move these away. I'll sort them in a bit. Because down here we also then have a little bit of like Adidas a Predator F50 Plus OG history. If we start from over here, I actually do also have a pair of Nitrocharge ones, familiarization pair. We tried to make some uni ID on it. As you can see, it's not really holding up very well. I just took off the I, so now it just says Jame. But a really interesting boot, the Nitrocharge one, where they work with the energy sling here, this rubber band across the forefoot that was basically supposed to give you like a little bit more lockdown and containment in the forefoot and ensure that when you accelerated, your foot was held in place, and then you could really use what was it called? The energy pulse, which was basically this really hardened torsion bar that made the forefoot very springy. That sat down here, and with your forefoot locked down on the plate and having this really springy forefoot, you would basically feel a little bit more energy return. That was the idea with the Nitrocharge. They used a Hypertouch forefoot, which actually was really, really soft. It fit very well, and I think if they'd actually gone and slapped some Predator elements on this, it would have felt like a Predator. I think a lot of people would have accepted that. They obviously also made the Nitrocharge, well, it was still called the 1.0, but the second generation with an even bigger energy sling. And to me, it was never as good. It was just a little bit more like in your face. So never truly enjoyed that. But what I did enjoy though was the SL version, again, that came out with this pack, which just did many of the things right. This super soft Hypertouch forefoot. Obviously we have the energy sling that it does give a little bit of solidity in the forefoot on the Adizero outsole, and obviously the heel could have been a little bit nicer, but it's a really, really good boot. Again, one I could, if not for the ridiculous peacock design, I could whip out, and it has to be a peacock, right? or some sort of like fairy tale animal. I don't really remember. So that was definitely interesting. There is the Adipower, which is one of, if not my favorite, like OG Predator ever, to be honest. And I know it's a little bit of a controversial opinion because obviously it doesn't have a fold-over tongue, so a lot of people will crucify me for loving that. And it also did not have a K leather upper. So this is a Taurus leather upper, which doesn't matter because it's still really, really soft, and the shape of the boot is just fantastic. The rubber elements they're not in your face, but they still add something, especially those long ping passes. Absolutely love doing these in them. The suede heel liner, the heel shape is perfect, good amount of structure on the heel counter, and it just worked, right? Absolutely love me a pair of Adipowers. I have them in a couple of different colorways. I do even have the SLs, which had this really thin, soft synthetic upper instead. And they're lighter and they still work. So really cool. I have the DB ones as well, which was obviously a synthetic version because David Beckham didn't want to wear the leather boots. He got a synthetic version of the Adipowers as well, which is a beautiful colorway, and the shape of this boot is just absolutely phenomenal. Love me the Adipower, and the OG colorway, as you can see, is battered. I'm gonna take good care of those. I also had recently got the original F50 Pluses in the black blue colorway, just so we had them for the re-release, and of course also the OG, owned by a guy called Addies, it would seem, before, number 27. Don't know who that is, but we just had to get this in as we were doing the Unisport F50 Plus Spider SMU. These have been well worn, as you can see, but it was just nice to have that reference point and really look at it. And yes, that's one of the things that we didn't get completely like one-to-one, where you can see it has that leather upper going all the way through with the stitched cage instead of the TPU cage that was on the original black blues. It is what it is, and I actually reckon it feels quite nice on the new ones. We also have a pair of Predator X's, which was an absolute abomination. It was big, it was chunky, you know, the Pred elements were, yeah, they were there, but they didn't offer as much, I think, as you would expect from a Predator in terms of grip. We had that stupid burrito style tongue, and the leather was okay. I hated the outsole, was stiff and chunky, and it just never wasn't really my thing. And then of course, the Power Swerve, which is, again, before the Adipowers came out, I think this was my favorite for a long time. Absolutely phenomenal shape, again, super soft leather. The Predator elements perhaps were not either as grippy as you would expect, but it had that lovely, fantastic like base as you struck the ball, and just had a, you know, again, the shape, low pointy toe box, good amount of width to them, lovely shape in the heel, and the outsole was great too. So lots of historical boots here. Overweight on Adipowers, and that's because J. Mike loves himself and Adipower. One of the best Preds ever. I've said it. And just like a side note, and it might not be a problem that too many people have because they won't have 1,700 plus pairs of football boots, but like storing these, and you know, when you pick out a pair and everything falls down, and actually putting back, it can be tedious. So I know there's not always the perfect order, and not every boot is like next to the other pair, but it's just a matter of making everything fit so it doesn't fall whenever I try to take it. Just a little side note here, because organizing this can be a nightmare. And then we move back up here, where as you can see, I have a wide assortment of Diadoras. I have a lot of Diadora Brazils, the Brazil Elite here, which is actually a nice little speed boot with a leather full foot, but probably also one of the worst boots I've ever tried when it comes to sizing. I think I have to go down at least a full size, maybe not, sometimes even like a size and a half. This is like this is like a Europe 38 and a half, and these are still a little bit big on me. Normally I'm a Europe 40, 38 and a half. Like, do you know, I already have small feet. Do you know what that does to a man's pride to have to go down into that? So Diadora have always historically made solid football boots, but I just think, like, given all their heritage and stuff, maybe it's time to like build a little bit on top of that. maybe just me. I have a couple of those. Not the biggest Diadora collection in the world, to be fair. Right next to here, I have some of the OG Puma power boots. You know, obviously I have the Evo Power ones, which made a big splash ahead of the World Cup in 2014. We probably all remember the tricks, which I sadly don't have, that was a special, you know, pink, light blue, and but this boot was special because it basically kind of went and did up with the mantra that power boots needed to have this really stiff spine underneath the boot that would just, you know, give you a very solid base to strike from and lock your boot in position, or lock your foot in position. Whereas this Puma made some studies with a university that basically said that the more your foot can actually go into that barefoot state of when you strike the ball, you bend it a little bit like that. That is where you get the most power out of the boot. So they actually made this gradual stability frame, the GSF, that allowed the boot to always also bend backwards. And then of course they had this upper that was really special, which basically allowed to also stretch that way and follow the stretch of the outsole. It was really, really comfortable and also maybe a little too plasticky for a lot of people's taste. And then they made a couple of variations of the Evo Power, but let's see if I can get this down without stuff falling. There was the Evo Power, no, J? Okay, we're not gonna do that. Let me just pull these out, because they also eventually made the Evo Power Vigor, which is probably my favorite of them all. You just have this, you still maintain the Adidas, which was the synthetic, but it was basically overlaid this really, really thin mesh upper, textile upper, that continue up to the sock. Kind of had this like neoprene feeling to it. And it was a wonderful, wonderful boot. Still had the gradual stability frame here. The upper still flexed really well, but the fit was so good. It was really light, and it was just, that was a good, very, very easy boot to wear. Obviously, we also have some of the older Evo Powers here. No, sorry, the Evo Powers, the Power Cats. Where you have the Power Cat 110, which was interesting. It had all these little like rubber pods here that would give you like a solid base as you struck the ball. Maybe not that much grip, but it did feel powerful, and this was a tank. So was the Power Cat 112, which was, I mean, when I see this, I immediately think Cesc Fabregas. But it had this 3D power strike technology that it was called, which was, they love their abbreviations here, PSD, Puma 3D PSD. Was it called power shooting, power strike? My memory is hazy. If there's someone out there who actually remembers, well, let me know in the comments. It might be that there's a certain guy working at the archives at Puma that can help me out right there. Because he's watching this video, I know. But anyways, solid boot, chunky as, you know, it was chunky. And it was heavy, but if you wanted to feel powerful, they definitely did the job. There was a lot of weight behind the Power Cats. And just funny how it transitioned into Evo Power, and then it became the Future, and now that thing is kind of gone. And I wonder if it's ever coming back. Now, if we move down here, I have some OG Mercs, just like the shelf below, with some Adidas OG goodies. I just have a little bit of everything. A highlight, of course, being the Mercurial R9s from 1998, signed, of course, by the man himself, which is brilliant. I have some Match Mercurials here, which is great. I have there's a CR7 Vapor III, which is also nice. Of course, I have a couple of Vapor 8s here, which are also like we talked about with the Vapor 9, they just kind of brought the Vapor back where they needed to be. We'd had the Superfly 1, 2, and 3s, where the Vapors kind of followed the 5, 6, and 7s. And the Vapors were rubbish. So were the Superflies, to be fair. Superfly 2 and 3, what an awful boot. I have the first Vapor right here. Not in a good shape because I decided to play in it for a video, and the sole plate said, no, bye-bye, Jay. So that's gone, but still absolutely beautiful. Obviously, this was the colorway Shock Orange that inspired one of the Vapor 1 Regen remakes. Also have 3 pairs of the Vapor 2s, obviously this being the highlight, the goals that CR7 wore back when he tore things up in 2002, 2000, and that was 03, 04. 2002 was the Vapor 1, of course. Then, of course, we also have my Vapor 4s that I actually took the lace cover off. That improved them significantly, but was not a great boot in my book. Never really enjoyed them that much. Superfly 2s, Superfly 3s. That was back when we thought it was cool to put like these sneaker-inspired laces in. Turns out it wasn't, but god awful. Like, what were they thinking? And you know, the Elite pack for the World Cup was really, really cool. It was just a shame it was on such a terrible football boot as the Superfly 2. You know, this upper, and yes, it's up, but it's the stiffest thing you can ever imagine. Like, how did they get anyone to play in these and pay like a premium? I think they were like, what were they? Around 400 euro. It was ridiculous. Like, absolutely ridiculous what you had to pay for these. Nah. And obviously, yeah, okay, we got the CR7 Safaris on the Superfly 2s, and they are iconic, but only because of the design. Not because the boots were there, and they had this stupid Nike sensor that was supposed to give you a little bit of like, the marketing footage was the stud, like a claw came out that dug into the ground, and like in reality it was this little knob on the inside of the insole that was supposed to move it a couple of millimeters, and it never really did. So yeah, that was a big old, I wouldn't call it a scam, but that was a gimmick. Down here we have some Vapor 15s. We talked about the Superfly, so I'm not gonna go too much into it, but a couple of good colorways. Obviously, the 25th anniversary was very nice. Also, this one where they went back to the match Mercurial design was really, really nice. Enjoyed that one. I made a Nike ID, so cool, but we've looked at most of this already. If we move down here, I have some Predator 3.1s and also some Mutator 0.1s, which was basically the sensible version of the Predator, both the Mutator and the Freak, which had slightly different demon skin rubber spikes on them, and not as many as the Pluses had, but they were still there, and they were not made with knit but with textile instead. So they were different, but probably the more like, you saw a lot of players opting for these instead of the Pluses because they made just a little bit more sense to wear. Over here, Magista, which is iconic, absolutely iconic. And I know I'm an old guy, so you know, I remember these as if they were yesterday. We were at the launch in Barcelona. And you know, we had obviously, when you work in this business, you know what's coming, right? You know what's coming, and back then, no one knew what was coming. I think the CEO of Unisport knew what was coming, but I had no one knew. We'd seen the teaser images of like this cloth over the silhouette of the Magista, and no one had an idea. So we go down there, and then in the morning of the launch, Adidas dropped the Prime Knit footy sock, which turned out to just be like a prototype, right? So they just made a prototype, which was this like super high, almost like a welly boot knit construction that looked absolutely crazy, but they just launched it in the morning to kind of like, I think, disrupt the Magista launch. Insane. But then they dropped this, and obviously the whole world went crazy. This screams Iniesta. And the first fly knit boot, the first boot with a high knit sock, that was at least, okay, the footy sock came out as a prototype a few hours earlier, but never really released. So in my book, the Magista is the real first one to do that. I do have a pair of wear test pairs as well, which I actually got after the boot itself had come out. Then they sent me these, because they didn't want me to see the silhouette before. Just a fantastic pair to have one of these. They obviously also went and made the Magista Opera 2. Do we have anything else of the Magista? No, that's fine. Magista Opera 2, which had a different knit structure, all these little bumps, which were supposed to give you a little bit more like, utilize the dead space inside these to give you a slightly more dampened and elegant touch. But in my book, these were not better than the original Magistas. I think they gave you something else, but they weren't that big improvement that you might have wanted. And then of course also when they made the Opus, that was a disaster. Where they had, instead of these, for the first couple of generations, they had these little like dot zids that we saw on the other boots. Looked absolutely terrible. Okay, down here we then have some of the newer Predators, the Predator 25s, which is a boot I'm really glad I've stocked up on, because it's been a great servant of mine. I have absolutely loved them. This is actually in the wrong place. I guess I just put them in there. That is my familiarization pair it's hard to say. Familiarization pair of the Predator 26s, which I've worn a lot. You can also see they've softened up quite a lot better than the launch pair I've had. And that's because I've worn these for quite a long time, but they shouldn't be in here actually. But just a lot of all the different colorways of the Pred 25s. My familiarization pairs of those are here, which is also a great boot to have. And I just love the Hyper Touch too. That is fantastic. Obviously the Babes are really cool, and this again was a particular highlight when Adidas went and made, you know, the custom made to measure boot of the 25 for me. I actually went out and rocked the AG version last night for training, just because these are special. Very good boot. Obviously we've had tons of colorways. Obsidian Strike is also a particular highlight, which again we talked about the Pred 24 leather options with the Rotero and the David Beckhams. I reckon these are a little bit better. They don't feel as I wouldn't call them chunky, but there's just not as much body and volume to these, so I like these a little bit better. I don't understand why they just didn't sell out immediately, because they are really good football boots, and probably hit a little bit more of the essence of what an OG Predator would have been like in 2025. But the regular Pred 25s are also very good, and loads of colorways here. So yeah. Gotta get these back on the shelf. That is in a little bit, because we should also talk about these, where of course we also had the high Predator Mutator 0.1. They came out in both lows and highs. I do have a lot of those, and we also have the Freaks right here, which is, that's the boot we did a very long ASMR video on, where we just like went out and put the lasers in, and you know, that works well for an ASMR, but also fun. And this resembled the Plus a little bit more than I would say the Mutator did. But it wasn't, you can just see it was not as crazy as the Pluses were. And now that we can just keep going, like loads more Pred 25s down here, and then of course the Pred 20 Plus Mutators, which at the time, I mean, when I saw this silhouette first, I was like, no, there's no way this is going to work. These are way too crazy. They look absolutely ridiculous. There was the launch colorway. But somehow they pulled it off, and the fit was actually a lot better than you would think. I mean, it actually gave you a nice tight fit around the ankle and just flowed nicely into the lower part of the leg. Obviously, again, like you can just hear this. 406 little rubber spikes, SL rubber spikes that are ridiculously grippy. And the grip was probably the grippiest thing I've ever tried in my life. Like, it has to be. There can't be any other boot out there that is more ridiculously, obnoxiously grippy than this one. But it somehow worked because it was so unique. And obviously I really remember this because we shot the review with a Komodo dragon, like a live Komodo dragon. So we went, I went inside its enclosure, and it wasn't like the zookeeper was there, and it was just chilling. But you can, if you watch the video, and it was just, the Komodo dragon was just chilling under like a warm light to heat it up. And then at one point I was sat there doing my sync like we are now, and at one point it moves and it looks at me, and you can almost see like it moves, and I'm like twitching a little bit. My voice is low because I don't want to startle it or anything. So that's probably the most afraid I've ever been shooting a Unisport video, but a fun experience nonetheless. These go down here, and obviously the human race was beautiful. Basically getting the design of the Accelerator, but in like this hand-painted design, and wow, what a boot. They never made it my size either. That's the problem with having small feet. And then just down here before we move on, I have a couple of different generations of the Nike Premier. Obviously this one from 2000 and I think it was 13 where it first came out. Just a really, really nice boot, super comfortable from the get-go. Lovely fit in the heel. Maybe outsole wasn't the best thing you'll ever see, but hey, it worked, and for the money, it was absolutely great. I don't think maybe that they are as good anymore, the Premiers. They're still super soft, but it's just, with the fold-over tongue and stuff, if I was to wear the Premier today, I would go for the first generation. Obviously now with the introduction of the Tiempo Ligero Pro, it also means that we won't see the Premier around anymore, so thank you for your service, old friend. And then we move on to Ligero Pro. It's been a pleasure. Right, so up here next to the Evo Powers and Power Cats, we have a couple of different Nike boots, amongst others the GS360 from 2018 that were made in 2018 pairs. I think I have pair number 185. And the funny thing was that this was really, really nice to wear, but it was not made with the most premium materials. It was not Flyknit, I think it was a flat knit, and it was just a circle in it maybe, yeah. And it was interesting. The outsole was actually nice. You saw a lot of these vibes on later Mercurials, but it was really soft, very light, and of course Mbappe rocked these for a while. You understand why? Fun boots to wear. And then of course also the Air Zoom Ultras, which introduced this full plate Zoom Air unit to kind of give a little bit of a taste of what it would be like with the Zoom Air unit in Mercurial boots. Big one-off. And again, this is where Nike kind of started their wider heels, which personally, I'm not that down with. I have a slim heel, so yeah, maybe could just do it like Mizuno, maybe. Cool. Up here then, of course, we have the Superfly 6s, which again, we talked about it with the Vapors. Probably not my favorite generation of Mercurials ever, but has some really memorable colorways. Of course, this one from the World Cup in 2018 that did not take well to being worn when it was remotely dirty outside, because this stayed white-ish and the sock got really, really dirty. I think we all remember Modric running around late in the tournament, and he was just, it didn't look anything like the boot did early on when it released. Still here down we have of course the launch colorway of the Superfly 6, which is iconic and actually acted as the inspiration for when they made that limited edition Mercurial that just dropped, so that's cool. Of course, we have then next to them some Superfly 5s, which of course had this ribbed texture right here, which was made with the Flyknit upper instead of being like the synthetic ribs that we saw on the Vapor 11. But otherwise, the theory was the same. We had some really cool colorways here. The Air Max inspired, I think it was the Air Max 90 that inspired this one. And I also do have, of course, the Superfly 4s up here. Yep, let me get them out. Which was obviously also, I should get better at doing my laces when I put them back. Anyways, obviously also iconic. Came out a little after the Magista, but featured the same high dynamic fit collar. First time we saw Flyknit on Mercurial, and is still to this day very, very enjoyable to wear. Obviously we got carbon fiber, as it should be, on the Superfly. We got that back, lovely sole plate, really, really soft, very light and nimble, and yeah, great football boot. One of the more free sock-like sensations I've tried in a Mercurial ever. Also just a fun little thing, which was, I think, was it this one? Might be, yeah, I think. So Superfly 5 launch colorway here, which as you can see still has some grass under it, and that is actually the grass from the San Siro where we did parts of the review at least. And actually one of these studs are not the original one. I had to replace it because I actually dropped a stud while filming the review. I realized after, we filmed 2 weeks before the Champions League final, so I was like terrified at some point during the Champions League final that someone would go down injured and then come back holding their thigh and there was like a stud stuck in their thigh. That would have been a problem. Never happened though, so to the groundskeeper that found my stud, thank you very, very much for avoiding a lawsuit. Down here then, we have some crazy fasts, and they are good. Well, it depends on what you're looking at. Like crazy fast Part 1s were okay. They were solid boots, if we're being honest. Like they did reasonably well. To me, they improved over the speed portals, and they did the job. To me, the real okay, we should probably mention these, which are well, they're well nice, aren't they? They're not the leyendas, but they are well nice. I have the leyendas over in the box. We'll look at that a little bit later. But I really want to talk about the Crazy Fast Plus, which is laces, Jay. Come on, mate. One of my, I say that quite a lot, but the Speed Flow and the F50 Adi Zero from 2014 has to be my favorite Adidas speed boots, like ever. Period. This upper was insane, like so thin, so light. The heel actually fit really, really great. Could have had a slightly tighter pinch, slightly closer feel, but it was very good. Suede was lovely. The outsole was extremely, wow, that is a snap and a half. That fantastic football boot, and I still wear it to this day with great joy. So that was fun. There's obviously also Strung, which was made entirely out of, as you guessed, string. You can actually you can shine light through it, and it actually has holes in it. So do not wear it in the wet, because water will literally seep through the string. But fun technology nonetheless. Then we have some Future Zs here, which were interesting. Obviously, we can start with the first generation down here, which was a little bit of a detour from what we had seen previously with the Future 5.1. And you know, yeah, then we had the whole rubber band here, the Fusion Fit and all that stuff, and it was okay to me, but it just never really hit the heights of being like, wow. A solid boot to wear by all accounts, and I never really hated it, but I just never got I never got that feeling with it either, and that was a little bit of a shame. And obviously we got some different generations of it. It was the second generation, basically the same boot, just with a slight update, like was a popular trend at the time. And then the updated Future set as well, which featured a similar idea, you know, still a compressed midfoot here and a soft textile forefoot. And yeah, cool, solid. Again, it worked, it did the job, but it was never like, I never had the mind explosion of coming into these. Next to them, we have some Tiempo Legend 8s, which is a very, very interesting football boot as well. Extremely comfortable. Actually, very, very similar. It had the quad fit mesh on the inside, like we talked about from the Phantom Visions earlier on, which you actually get to really experience when you start to move in the boot, because the leather is ridiculously soft, like really, really, really soft. There are no restrictions, no nothing, no stitches holding it back. It just molds to the shape of your foot. But then you have the quad fit mesh on the inside to kind of give you that hold that you actually need for it to perform. It's on the wider side and really no nonsense, but a great little boot. And obviously I love this Legend 4 inspired colorway that just hits all the right spots. And it just like feeling this, obviously you have this Flyknit tunnel here that kind of wraps your foot, and then you probably can't see it, but maybe you can see it. The white stuff in here. That's the quad fit mesh right there. Lovely. Okay, then we move down here to a shelf that I don't know what I'm gonna do, because there's probably more Predator remakes coming at some point. I would be surprised if there's not, and there is literally no more space in this shelf, and I don't know where else to put it. So many cool things. I'll try and keep it short because we could talk for ages here. Obviously, I mentioned the Predator 94 remake here, which was actually really, really good. It has the same look and feel, you know, the rubber elements are toned down a little bit, and it's a very nice boot. The heel is fantastic. Fantastic, boys and girls. What else should we talk about? This was an absolute, I don't know what they were doing. No, absolutely not. So many cool remakes here. Obviously, we have the accelerators, we have a lot of Manias. What else do we have? We have some pulses over here. Let me just grab these, which are probably my favorite Predator remakes so far, which is the Mania with the Mutator outsole on. And it just does things a little bit better than all the other boots. The shape is just a little bit better. It's on point. The leather is absolutely fantastic, and actually for me an improvement over it. You got the little stripes because you have the split tooling going under. And this probably felt like the best, and still does feel like the best recreation of the Predator Mania to me. So we have lots, like there's the Beckham accelerators with like the primed base and then the leather overlaid, which was also funny, a little bit of a special experience to wear for sure. But what else do we have? Then there are these that they made back when the Predator 18 was around, which is just like, okay, cool. Hey, let's slap a little bit of like a sticky print on that looks like the Mania stripes, but in reality are not. So it was just like a leather Predator 18. Whack, but it is what it is. There's been some good remakes. Most of them were actually, to be fair, very, very good. And obviously with the new generation going into like the whole Made in Germany stuff, they are also very strong. And I actually think the fit in the gunmetal Predator Mania here is a little bit better than it was with the previous outsole. So that is nice. Then down here is another shelf that's very close to my heart, F50 Adi Zero. Where do we begin? Let's begin over here just because we can I've probably shown you this before, but familiarization pair of the OG F50 Adi Zero from 2014. What an absolute grail to have. I don't wear it as much as I should because I'm terrified that they're gonna break, but I mean, all black. One of the best speed boots from Adidas ever. I do have a couple of other ones. I do have it in SG, so that's cool. Have the original F50 2010 Adi Zero in leather. I do have also the Adi Zero Prime, which is actually really, really interesting with this Adi Light twin upper that was a little bit different than the regular synthetic they used. It's a little thinner, actually very soft, and just obviously super, super light. Then I have the AG Adi Zero. As you can see, I've been stepped on the toe a couple of times in this one, so that hurt. There's of course also the 2015 Adi Zero, There Will Be Haters campaign, which is also hybrid touch, but for some reason for me just never hit the same height. It doesn't have the same shape as the 2014 one, and it's a solid boot, but just not, it doesn't have the same magic for me as the one from 2014. Obviously, I also have a couple of the earlier generations of the F50 Adi Zero, notably the Messi one here, but they weren't as good to me. They were kind of like solid in-betweeners, but the 2014 was the one for me. Then down here, I also have what is very, very special, which is basically, let me pull this one out. So I have the leather version of the 2014 F50 Adi Zero here, this was the one you could buy in retail. So that was the one you and I could go and buy from unisportstore.com. This was the boot that Adidas made for some of their pros. This is also a leather upper, but it's made in the style of, you know, the hybrid touch version, where it's just leather instead of hybrid touch. So it also has that little sticky micro texturing on the vamp, but it's just the softest possible leather instead on SG, and I have worn these a lot. I also have a blue pair that is still brand new in box that I dare not touch, basically. But so I got these. I came across them on eBay and I was like, there is no way this is just like sitting here without people knowing what it is. So I bought it immediately. And obviously finding anything cool in my size is difficult, but finding those, I just had to get them, like, immediately. Now, then right here, of course, we have a pair of Copa Mundials in black and white. They're nice to have. I have a pair of Puma King tops because good to have around if I ever need them. Down here, I then have the new Puma stuff that I don't really know where to put elsewhere. The new Puma King 20 Ultimates, the new Future 9 Ultimates. If you want to see more about them, you can watch my reviews. Shameless plug. Then up here, I have Mizuno Morelia and Morelia Neos. Now, if you don't know, the Mizuno Morelia is one of my favorite boots, particularly this one. So right now you can get the Morelia Neo for Beta Japan, which has the knit sock. It's a very, very good boot. AG plate is fantastic. My personal favorite though is the one without the knit tongue, which you can currently not buy in Europe, and that is stupid because this is the better version. And I think if push comes to shove and I have to select a boot, one football boot to only wear for the rest of my playing days, this currently is the one I'm gonna choose. Closely followed by this bad boy, which is the Morelia Neo, which is a slightly wider, cheaper brother to the Morelia. The tongue is not as nice as the one on the Morelia, which can be fixed, but the vamp here, the forefoot, is also kangaroo leather. It's also very nice, and then it gives us like a regular stitch and turn heel instead of the knit heel on the Morelia, which is like super nice. So you basically get a stitch and turn heel Morelia if you can live with the tongue, and it's cheaper. But the problem is, do you know what the problem is? Is it in Europe? No? Should it be in Europe? Yes? I'm making intense eye contact with you, Mizuno. Specifically you if you're watching this video this far in. Please make it happen. Please. Like, if I can only make one request to you for the next many years, please make this happen, okay? Thank you. And you know what? We keep going. There are more shelves. And I realize how stupid this is and how far into the video we are. But if there's anyone even watching anymore, you guys are legends. I mean, I can keep talking and I will keep talking, trust me, but man. Anyways, up here, quick one. A little Italian flair, some Pantofolo Doros, mostly Lotto boots, mostly Solistas actually. There's also the Maestro, which is very interesting. The Maestro these days sucks, but this one was actually, that came out, what, like, was it 2019 or 20? Thing was that generation was very good. Obviously, golden 50th anniversary edition was really cool. So Solistas like a, maybe not the laceless one, but the one with laces is a solid, relatively cheap alternative to a speed boot that's nice, nimble, relatively lightweight, and very, very, very sock-like. And perhaps the closest thing you'll come to like the feel of the OG Superfly 4. So a little bit of Italian stuff. Up here we have the Predator Accuracy. Let's really just pull it down, which was nice because it basically saved us from the edge. And it was never fantastic, and it had some issues with the heel and stuff, but it just took what the edge, that it did relatively well, and it just basically made it more palpable. So it's a solid little boot. I have many of those. A fun one with these ones, the Parlay. Obviously, they were done with using plastic from the ocean. Plastic waste from the ocean that has been gathered in, and it's a very good cause. We wanted to make a cool video for it, so our videographer at the time, or now, he actually went out in the freezing, I think it was January or February, and he went out in the water with the boots and then just went down, popped the boots up. I got it on camera. I wasn't fully happy. He came up and he was like shivering. I was like, do it again, man. He was like, went down, boop, up again. We got the shot. He came up and he hated me for the rest of the day. Didn't talk to me. It is what it is. So that was very fun. Right here we have some Furon V8s, which is a great little football boot. And basically for me, the culmination so far of like the Hypoknit Furons, which is super soft, very thin, fantastic fit in the heel, really, really snappy outsole. Obviously the Unisport 30th anniversary pack is a really, really special one. Cool one. Lots of cool colorways actually. Stone Island, the red ones. This was really cool too. I love that. And yes, of course, do I have? That's a clean one. I do, yes. I love it when the brand sent me 2 different sizes because then I get to keep one clean. And I think I have the other one at home still actually. I still have it sometimes in my match day bag. They're nice. So here we have some Superfly 5s, a few more of these. That was my test pair that I got back in the day. It's basically just a Nike ID, I think it says on the insole. But they made this for me on Nike ID, so I got a non-launch colorway test pair to do. Down here, I'm still building like this up. and recently it was very empty because there hadn't been that many colorways of the Phantom 6 out yet. But as you can see, that's gonna change soon, and I'm gonna run out of space very, very soon. So, but, you know, a couple of good colorways of the Phantom 6s. Again, the latest one is cool. Attack Pack, Kobe's also really, really nice. I love the little like fang stud tips that they have. Cool. But yeah, Phantom 6, great boots. Down here as well, Mercurials. It's a little bit amputated right now because I have a lot of Mercurials in a box that I'm doing for a short. But basically all the Mercurial Vapor 16s are down here in all their glory. I have a couple of the Vapor 1 regions that, well, if you cut them right here, would be really, really good remakes. From the heel and up, it's an absolute joke. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, and I think I've hated enough on them for the entirety of 24 and 25 combined. But Vapor 16s, you all know them. Great boots, very solid. Same thing can be said for the Superflies over here, just so we don't talk too much about them. Which is my favorite though? That's a good question, Jay. Ooh. I really love the Vinnies, actually, the Vinny Fly. I think that's, and I know it's not for everyone, but I really like that one. And also the first Cosmic Speed, I think, is special. I mean, look at this bad boy. Oh, look at this. In the different, nah. And yes, like, performance-wise, it kind of sucks because the Gripknit is not really that grippy anymore, but looks-wise, Down here are some Mizuno Alpha 2s, which is like this middle generation of the Alpha that is still fantastic speed boot, but made the upper a little bit sturdier, a little bit more robust compared to the first generation. Still very, very soft lined. But just to give you a slightly more locked in sensation. And for lockdown, it's one of the best boots I've ever tried, but also not as soft and pliable as the first generation. And it introduced the new AG outsole, slightly further between the studs here, so that was nice. And obviously it had this really, really, really cool rainbow launch colorway as well. Maybe not the nicest finish in the world, but what a drop. Then here we have some Tiempo Legends. We have some 6s, we have some 7s here. Obviously the 6, really nice launch colorway. I remember shooting this in the mud, and maybe this is actually still the same mud from back in like way when we shot this. So that's nice. A couple of Tiempo Legend 7 signed by Sergio Ramos. So that's cool. Also an interesting boot. But you know, just that this is a mess, Jay. I have to fix that after the video. What are you doing? Lovely boots, and I think, especially in this day and age, obviously with the new Maestro, it's gonna. I think the vibe around the Tiempo is gonna change again now that it actually, the tech leather is ridiculously good. But I still think these are some of the generations that people kind of dream back to, with the 5, the 6s, and the 7s, and also the 8s. The 8s are solid too. Down here then we have some Adidas boots from like the relaunch era, if we can call them that. So in 2015, Adidas just dropped everything. They killed the F50, they killed the Predator, they killed the 11 Pure, and then they instead introduced us to the X, the Ace, and the Messis. And here we have some X's and Aces. We also have the PrimeKnit 2.0, which was really interesting. Basically a full PrimeKnit upper, very, very, very soft. And unlike the first PrimeKnit that they made, this was actually playable. Yes, the heel looks ridiculous. Yes, it still felt very nice. And you know, on the Adi Zero outsole from 2015, before the reshuffle, it was actually solid. Obviously, notable boots here is the A16 Plus Pure Control. That was the first like mass-produced, really popular laceless boot that we ever saw. Not the best when it comes to lockdown, but really, really interesting. And yeah, it blew up when it launched. Like, people lost their minds, obviously. Ace, I do have my wear test pair. I have quite a few wear test pairs of these. Ace 15.1s, which was interesting. Loads of little studs under here, and just like, again, maybe felt a little bit more CTR Maestri, of course. I'm learning just to say Maestro for the Tiempo instead of Maestri, and now I'm calling this the Maestro. Anyways, what else? Pure controls over here. I do have my Ace X, come on Jay, names. My X 15.1 prototypes or familiarization pairs as well. I have an Ace 17 Plus familiarization pair as well. The X15.1s were not. I don't really think they lived up to what they came from with the F50 Adi Zero. But Adidas made amends in 2016 with the Pure Chaos. And later, let me get one of the Pure Speeds. That will be, let's just get it right here. So the Pure Speed, X17 Plus, 16 Plus, and 17 Plus, and these were really good football boots. Basically think glitched, but just like assembled. And really nice tech fit collar here, super soft. Full foot, very nice fit, decent plate, and by all accounts a very solid speed boot. To me, the pluses were the best. The point ones were not all that amazing. Down here, a little bit of like everything, some Pantofolo Doros customs I made. Asics Lethal Tigreor, which has like this 10mm lift in the heel to kind of put you on your toes, which is fun. Pele Sports Trinity, which basically is a Nomis the Spark. So Pele just took over Nomis, which was this, it was one of the leather experts from Adidas, called Simon. Nomis, Simon, haha. Nomis is Simon spelled. Anyways, that's a nerd detail. Some will appreciate it out there, but Pele Sports took over, made the, this is not the Trinity, this is called the 1970. The Trinity is this one. That's their speed boot, which is, as you can see, I've worn the crap out of these, which was very fun. They introduced the 3-stud thing in the heel. That's a castor beam from the Sakito Scudetto. How on earth did that make its way there? Clean that up later. But the leather on this was ridiculous. Ridiculous. But then again, the outsole was perhaps a little too aggressive. Lots of stud pressure, especially in the heel, but lovely. One of the worst football boots I've ever worn, the Joma Fit 100 Light. Absolute joke. Love the shoe. So is this one, Select Milano Retro. Slippiest heel you'll ever see. It's heavy as sin, and like even with grip socks, I'd be slipping in these. The Sakito Divista, also relatively nice. Obviously, the Scudetto is better. What else do we have here? And some old samples of the T90. So, yeah, get those back in there as well. But now we have just one shelf left. Can you believe it? We've had like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is the 11th shelf. So that's a lot of football boots. Yeah. If we go up here, we have the New Balance Vizzaros and the Tequelas. Now, the first Vizzaros, which are these ones, were actually quite solid. By today's standards, maybe they aren't as good as I remember them, but back then they gave that kind of Hypervenom-like feel, and it was definitely a lot better than the first New Balance Furon. That kind of sucked. The New Balance Vizzaro 2 though, I mean, it's a bold claim to say it's one of the worst football boots I've ever tried. I've just mentioned it right down there, but these were bad. As in bad. I've worn these once for the playtest, and I've never ever worn them again. These are so stiff and so, like, they ruined everything. Obviously, then the Tequelas came around, which started like afresh, like working on comfort. These are never gonna come out, are they? There we go. Worked on comfort and a nice touch, and they were solid. They were released in 2018, and you know, yeah, cool. But where we are today, like a couple of generations or many generations after, with the Tequela, obviously with the V5 being a very good boot. V4s, which are here, were also great. I mean, all of this, yeah, the first generations of the Tequelas, cool, but I think it was worth waiting a little bit for where we are today. So lots of New Balance stuff up here. We also have the Skechers Razor here, which, let me grab the Unisport one. Which is, earlier in the video, I talked about the Vapor 10 and how some people would maybe want that to come back. I feel like this is the kind of the spiritual successor to the Vapor 10, because it has a very similar synthetic upper here with some of the same finish to it, much the same release paper, so it has a little like square dotted feel to it. Super soft, very nice speed boot, very democratic fit in the sense that it's a little bit wide, has a very anatomical feel to the toe box, good fit in the heel, super responsive plate, and is, I think, a seriously underrated speed boot. Like, I don't know anyone who's tried this coming from the Mercs or the F50s or the Ultras or even the Mizunos and have not enjoyed their time in the races. So lots of good colorways, and they know what they're doing. Here, a little cheeky Mizuno Alpha 3, and obviously my clean pair. Again, I got two. The dirty ones in my match day bag because they're that good, but I got them in different sizes. This is the one that didn't fit me, but whiteout test pair. Beautiful. Here you can really see like the reinforcement knit structure that's hard to see on the launch colorway. You see that all those extra little reinforcement threads they have made. English J. Up here, some Tequila V4s, which are very, very solid. Good little boot, lovely fit, great knit structure, and the heel is to die for. Then one of the shortest lift silos in Nike history, the Phantom Luna 1, and then of course they made the Luna 2 as the high-cut GX. It made absolutely no sense. It introduced the Cyclone 360 stud configuration that we saw to minimize knee injuries and all that stuff. But I think where they've landed with the one on the Phantom right now, that's the HEJ. Right here, it's just a little bit more balanced and not as aggressive and in your face. So that's just a better thing. And this felt a little bit like they were trying to recreate what they did with the Magista, recreating that magic, but it was never, like, it was fine, but it was never anything more than fine to me. And I don't mind seeing this going away. I think we're in a way better place with the Phantoms, also AG, but way better place with the Phantom 6s. Then down here we have the Puma Ultra 5 and Ultra 6 Ultimates and Carbons. It's a little bit of a mess because there are so many of them. Like, Puma released so many colorways of their boots that is just a matter of just like, and then hoping it stays. Obviously, highlight for me is, I've mentioned them several times, the Ultra 5. And we're back with the light. These are a highlight, the Ultra 5 Ultimate and Carbons. What if? Basically playing into, as I talked about earlier, the Evo Power Stampas with this newspaper-inspired design that are just really, really cool. Celebrating the 30th anniversary of Unisport with like a why always Unisport, why always Puma, and then lots of like newspaper-style articles about Unisport, us, and Puma and our shared history. So really, really special, great boots, and just I think there's a lot of like thumbnails I have made and stuff that personally like a big thing to see. So that's very fun. Lots of great colorways on the Ultra Ultimates here. Obviously we have the Carbons as well that are super aggressive. And there's some things they could fix, absolutely, with the Carbons. Lockdown in the heel should be a lot better. Toe box should probably fit a little bit better as well. Down here, Mercurial Superfly 10s. You know them, they're lovely. Cool. Favorite colorway, still Cosmic Speed, I think. Yeah, it has to be. This is also like, this is also special. I love the Safari print. Love me some Safari print. If we move down, then we have the first couple of generations of the Copa Pure, which is basically where Adidas went into a little bit more into like the, it's not a Morelia Neo clone, absolutely not, but it definitely gives us a little bit more of those things that works on the Morelia Neo with a soft, this is a fusion skin forefoot, so a calf leather basically, super soft as you can see. Then a textile mesh midfoot, and a relatively nice fit in the heel, and so this is obviously the SG, but we can take whatever, and this is the plate from the Nemesis. So a nice, light, relatively snappy plate. Lots of great colorways. They've done obviously a few different things where they have their laceless version as well, which by all accounts they've actually been solid boots. I've enjoyed them. And also, yes, of course, I do have my fresh pair of familiarization boots there as well. Love me some of that. Obviously the second generation, cool. They made the Plus where they had the knit collar, and then the 0.1s where they had the stitch and turn. Probably too much foam in the heel, but it is what it is. But they have been solid. I do believe though that the Pure 3s have been a step up, like a big step up. These were solid, but the Pure 3s are just way better. Down here is, well, the Future 8 shelf, which it's not the best Future Puma has ever made, is it? There are things I like about it. There's also quite a lot of things I don't like about it. What I do like especially is this colorway. The whole like sticker bomb vibe of taking most of the collaboration designs we've made with Puma and just slapping them on like stickers, like you would do with a suitcase. That is really cool. Let's just skip Future 8. I mean, if you've tried it, you also know that it has issues that Puma have tried to fix with the Future 9. Then we have Umbro, which is a little bit of like, there's been a lot of good stuff from Umbro, especially from back then when they were owned by Nike. I really like what they did. Umbro Geometra here, where we have Old Rusty. That's the right foot. The left says Old Rusty. Ha ha ha. Funny, it's not wrong though. But basically like a leather take on the CTR360 Maestri and a lovely, lovely little football boot. Probably a little bit too heavy by today's standards, but lovely suede liner, you know, super soft leather forefoot. They are very good. Speciales, of course, were great boots back in the day. Then of course there is the Umbro Stealth Pro, which had this like are you fox or chicken, with like taking the ball and taking the initiative, which was back in the day a really nice football boot, actually super soft synthetic here. Way too heavy by today's standards, but just cool. There's the Umbro Velocita, which was a nice, really super thin alternative to the other big speed boots out there. And I think especially after the Adi Zero went into being the X and maybe kind of like left some of the old Adi Zero traits behind, this was like a really nice replacement. But they have also, of course, made some very questionable decisions over the years. Like some of the newer Velocitas have just been like, no. And I don't know why with some of the modern toolings, the studs are just like, it's just, yeah. They've definitely, they used to be better back in the days. That's like the nice way of saying that. I'm not necessarily a fan of. It is what it is. Down here we just have a lot of like single boot samples with just lots of goodness, some Superflies, some V1 11 SLs here, which was a really, no, that's the Evo Speed actually. That is the Evo Speed. The 11s SL were obviously the green ones. This was the Evo Speed, which had like the perforated upper and all that stuff. Interesting, yeah. Vapor 4 SLs, iconic. Very iconic with the carbon fiber outsole. Introduced that before the Superfly came. So basically the Superfly before the Superfly was a much better boot than the regular 4. This was a fun one. Vapor 9, they did this series of like recreating iconic Mercurial designs. So they also did 02, 06, and 10, I believe. And 98 Merc was supposed to recreate like the OG 98 Merc, and they made it look like this. And it has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with that. 06, of course, the Vapor 3. Yellow and green, that R9 wore, obviously, which makes a lot more sense. Windchill Superfly 2s, which were cool. I said Superfly 2 for this. This is obviously the Superfly 3, and I am obviously getting tired. Vapors, they sucked. Vapor 4s, also Vapor 5s, they sucked. More Superfly 3s, Vapor 2s, brilliant. Ooh, here we have some Puma V106s, which were basically all textile and very, very interesting. Don't know who signed these, but they were worn by some pro player. Very, very nice boots, really fun to wear back in the day. One of the stupidest boots ever, the Under Armour Spotlight with a zipper. No. Lotto Solistas, basically the first laceless boot that came out in 2006. So that was really nice. It was worked on by a guy that went to Nike, Dennis Dekovic, who then went to Adidas later. Actually, that was like pulled the Luis Figo of football boots. But yeah, he worked on these as well. There is another Adi Zero. There you go. Is there not cool? Oh yeah, old F50 Tunits, and that is about it. So that is all of the boots, all of the shelves that we've gone through, and then I'm just going to show you a little bit of like what's on the shelves behind us, and that's it. Let me get these back. Yeah, a little hydration for the man. But basically back here we just have like boring stuff. I promised to just show you guys what's behind the scenes. It's a lot of shelf space, which eventually I'll have to just take for storing boots, you know. But we have some of the cool presentation boxes we've had over the years. Let me just get these out. I promise you to show you the leyendas. which are still in this box right here. So they're basically just sat at the back of the room. And these were cool, obviously, because they were the ones that they're very much connected to Messi winning. Messi in Argentina, of course, but Messi winning the World Cup. So so that was well nice. These are nice to have. Just lots of cool presentation boxes back here. And then also just all sorts of like storage. We have some bags, some clothes, some secret boots up here. Don't film them too much. Lots of balls. Yes, I have a lot of Triondas. Some training equipment, some sneakers, lots of random, like boot care stuff, some training apparel, socks, shorts, all that stuff. And that is it. So this is basically everything that is in my room, of course, including all the 1,700 plus pairs of football boots. It's a little bit chaotic right now because we've had to take like the table and the chairs out and everything just to film, but yeah, it's quite a packed area right here that it's just always fun for me to come into. I love this place. Like, obviously, does it smell bad in here? No? It's not that bad. It's not that bad. You think it's a lot worse, but yeah, it's a special place. And I think every time I bring someone in here that has even the slightest interest in football boots, and even just like people that are footballers, they're just like, wow. And because it is a lot, and it is like an overwhelming lot of football boots. So that was my entire football boot collection in early 2026. If you've made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. I know I talk a lot, but this is what I care about. This is my thing, right? So to get to talk about basically all of my football boots, all the little compartments on all the shelves, it's always special. Let me know what you think is the coolest boot I have in my collection. And I'd also love to hear what the coolest boot you have, or maybe have even ever had, write down in the comments. Now, if you also want to start building your collection, you can also go to unisportstore.com. Your friendly neighborhood boot push is right over there. Click the link and start finding your next pair of football boots or apparel or whatever. We have everything. Don't forget, of course, to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And with those words, I'll be signing off. I have a little bit of cleaning up to do, so cheerio.